Let's see what this microphone can do. A little impromptu live stream. Oh, just monitoring myself through the studio here. Oh, let's see. All right, let's go back to this. All right, let me pause that here. And let's see if we can edit this stream. Who knows? Let's get in here. I got to find it. Oh, unlisted. How about public? Why not? We're just going to do this. We're going to see. I mean, the point is, you know what the point is? I just realized that in this stream right now, so I didn't do a customized thumbnail, which is interesting, but I am wearing the same shirt that I typically wear, like that's on my channel trailer or the banner. That's hilarious. All right. So I probably have to repeat this a couple times. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to test this microphone because I've reviewed it. I have a video that I've already recorded. But the point is you know me on this channel. If you're new here, then probably you don't know. But for those that have been around, I like to test things out. And I really wanted this to be a plug and play solution and literally plugging it into the computer, no interface, no real controls or anything like that. So I'm really just kind of reviewing this Samsung Q9U, but I was trying to figure out like a topic to test and just wanted to go live for whatever reason. I just wanted to go live. And I thought that with all of the Apple rumors, because at least the circles that I'm in, the communities that I'm around, they all are just it just seems like Apple everything. I know Samsung had their release and the Google Pixel 6, like that pre-announcement, and of course that's coming out. And so I really wanted to take an opportunity just to see who in the world is just tired of all of the Apple rumors. Again, I use Apple. You've been around the channel, you can look at my playlist to see that I've talked about it quite a bit. I don't really consider myself like a news and rumor site. That's not really what I'm about necessarily. I think I primarily focus on Apple rumors from the standpoint of I have a lot of people in the comment section. They're always asking me, "Hey, I'm kind of at a crossroads. My device broke or it's on its last leg," which I completely get. I do. And so many of you with the rumor mill just kind of flooding your feeds on YouTube and really social media altogether is that you're like, okay, well, it's coming. It's going to be here soon. So should I buy what's current or should I wait for the next thing? And, again, a lot of my angle, sort of my approach is time. And I try to be respectful of people's time as far as like the content that I'm pushing out and giving you context where I think context is important, but then also talking about what I think you might want to know. Of course, I can't address all of it, but what it comes down to is time. And if you are so a great example, like doing YouTube full time and using an older MacBook Pro, it was really sluggish. It was really slowing things down. It was capable. It was definitely capable. But what was happening is that I literally my whole workflow was just slowing down to just almost impossible to get on the other side of really good time management and getting like my videos out and doing all of the other stuff that I'm doing. Anyway, I'm like rambling, but this is a live stream, so I get to do that. Anyway, so as an example, putting a 4K timeline in Final Cut Pro, even Final Cut Pro that is optimized for even Intel Mac, but obviously M1s. And I would be trying to crank out videos and there would be something just slightly off of like the video. Like it was just slightly I needed to correct something. There was a misspelling. There was something that I forgot to correct. And I would have to run that through an entire export again that on the Intel Mac. This is a MacBook Pro, Core i5. I mean, it's certainly underpowered for what I wanted it to do. And it could take anywhere from like a half an hour, maybe 40, 45 minutes to re-export that thing. On the M1 Mac Mini, I know I've talked about this a lot. I can do it in like 5 minutes or less. Just depends on like what I'm cutting, like what I'm really working with, what I'm working in. And so if you can put yourself in a position where you consider yourself like every hour you spend at work, and I don't mean just like your job, but like even the stuff that you're doing that you're trying, like your side hustle, like you have a billable hour. And so if I can literally get to a place where, okay, my billable hour is this, and you could throw out just some arbitrary number, $50 an hour. I mean, just throw out some arbitrary number that makes sense to you. And so if I had to re-export a video a couple of times and I can do that 5 minutes the first time, like, oh, nope, found another issue with it. I got to re-export it. And so then I have to do it again, another 5 minutes, no problem. But if I had to do that on my previous MacBook Pro Intel version at anywhere from on the low end 20 minutes, but averaging anywhere between like 30 minutes, maybe even more. I mean, that's what I try to put forth there is that I understand that the next thing is around the corner. I get it. And you can look through my videos and I remember everybody talking about how it was coming around WWDC. And even in the comment section, people ask me, but what about WWDC? And I'm not, it's not about me saying like I was right or that I knew it 100%, but it just didn't make sense. I know that Apple has released around, hey, what's up, Noah? Good to see you. And so I know that Apple has released hardware during WWDC. It just didn't make sense. There were just so many logistics that were happening in the world with, yeah, I mean, just shipping, manufacturing, like all of the development that was behind that. And of course, just Apple. What's up, Adam? Good to see you, Adam. And so hopefully I'm coming through okay. If you just popped on, the reason why I'm doing this live stream, we can talk Apple if you want. We can talk other stuff too, but I've got this microphone that I've had for several months and I recorded a video. I'm cutting it now. And I just thought, you know what? I just want to plug this right into the computer. I don't have any streaming software tied to YouTube. Like I'm just going right through YouTube Studio to do this. Like plug and play USB-C to USB Type A into actually the Mac Mini that's right in front of me. And I just wanted to use this as a point of reference. So for my video that'll be coming out. Noah, should I get the M1 MacBook or the iMac? So here's the thing. Um, as far as if you're talking about the MacBook Air, so I have that one as well. You if you're trying to cut anything like really heavy, doing very intensive tasks or anything like that, sometimes the fan can really come in handy as far as that thermal footprint and that throttling that occurs. And so I did a video where I took Arri Alexa cinema camera footage. I had to transcode it, so I had to put it in ProRes, but the highest I could put it in. And so on that MacBook Air that does not have a fan, I put it in Final Cut Pro, and I was able to scrub through the timeline. I was able to add some color correction, which although that was beautiful cinema camera footage, I didn't have to do a lot to it. So it's a very heavy codec that I was working with, and it was fine, but you do have to keep in mind, like, if that is your thing, like, if that is something that you are focused on are, like, heavier tasks, that fan may be necessary. It didn't crash, it didn't shut down or do anything, but there was some stutter when I was scrubbing through the timeline as I was adding more to the timeline. But here's the thing, Noah, anybody else, I doubt that most of you are trying to cut footage like that anyway. So I love the portability of the MacBook Air. And if you're talking about the MacBook Pro, that's obviously another situation where you do have the fan in there, so you would have that thermal throttling not be much of an issue. And I can tell you that my Mac Mini, it always runs at idle. Like, I've never heard the fan in it. So I guess my point being is, think about portability. If that's really what you want, think about whether you have like an external display, you've got peripherals, then the Mac Mini, it's great. How do you slow down your lithium ion battery from degrading? Well, so Shift, uh, tech for your needs. What's up? What's up, folks? As far as so I know that there are I haven't really touched on this so much as far as the battery's concerned, but I wanted to make sure that Noah has the answer, and I just want to make sure that portability is a big thing. Peripherals is another thing. I have a lot of people who reach out to me about MacBooks and that portability, and then it ends up sitting on the desk anyway for most of the time. However, it is nice to have if you just want to sit on the couch, chair, take it wherever you want. By all means, it's great. With the iMac, you've got a beautiful display there. However, I have heard, and I would recommend if you are thinking about the iMac, uh, don't get the base model, just because of that fan, and of course the ports that are really, you need more ports. We all need more ports. And so I think if you're looking for a beautiful display, I mean, I think the iMac can be the way to go. However, my concern is that once the next iteration of iMacs that do come out, if you're someone who is really looking to push the hardware, it's going to be interesting to see how people feel about a much larger footprint, bigger display, more power. I think the iMac is really good for sort of general use. I would go with the MacBook Air. I think that for the bang for the buck for portability and what it does, it's really hard to beat for all ultra portables. The Mac Mini, if you need a desktop, I would go with that, like, and just get a really nice display versus the iMac. That's just my opinion. So. Um, anyway, and as far as Shifts was saying, is slowing down your lithium battery from degrading. There is this whole thing about, so there's a lot happening with those batteries, and I've been doing some testing. So I've been trying to draw uh, power from the outlet, and then charging like my iPad and the MacBook Air and even like the iPhones. And what I will tell you is that because of that technology, you will see, and I can't show you right now, but you will see that the watts, so that charging does start to slow down. So if it's at, let's say, 18, 19 watts coming into that device, let's say like iPhone, what'll happen is it will start to slow down, or like the iPad, it'll start to slow down as it gets closer to about 90%. Then once you hit 95%, it'll go down to, I believe in my testing, I have to look at my notes, but around 4 or 5%. And then as it gets to about 99 and 100%, it literally is like a trickle. It really is like a trickle. And I know that there's a lot out there about unplugging your device, using it. I wouldn't say run it down completely, but I do think it's nice to kind of cycle the battery, let it do what it's supposed to do. So unplug it, take it around. So, I mean, that's kind of my input. And as far as vegan games, are you as disappointed with Apple's take on device monitoring as the rest of us, screeching majority? As far as you're talking about them sharing all of that information, this is definitely I think, a pivot and sort of a headline that we didn't expect. And I I've got to do a little bit more research in this. So, and it's interesting because in my world outside of YouTube, so I'm a healthcare provider, and I work in a very, let's just say, not just like with HIPAA and privacy, but I go deep with certain contracts that I have where there are just things that I can't even talk about. There are meetings that I go to that you can't even bring a phone into. Like, you've got to like set them outside. You can't have any cameras in there. And so I get security, I get privacy. I think this really is an interesting move. I need to know more about it, and I think this will be something that, I mean, Apple is gonna have to continue to evolve. They're gonna have to continue to tweak here as far as what they're going to be sharing, how that's going to be shared. This is people like I've got kids, right? So I've got three boys, and you're taking pictures of those kids, and I know that there was the headline that recently came out about, all right, moms and dads better get those bathtub pictures that you took off of your kids, like get it off your phone, get it out of iCloud. And when you have like salacial headlines like that, that's pretty scary. That's kind of worrisome because obviously if we're taking pictures of our kids, like they're babies, they're toddlers, like we're not looking. I don't know, like I got to be careful about this, but because this is supposed to be not for kids and it's supposed to be like, general rated or whatever. So I got to be careful with the YouTube and the algorithm and all that stuff. But I just think that we've got to tread lightly here as far as a consumer. I think we need to vote with our dollars, our wallets. There are other options. However, I play in Google a lot. I don't do Facebook. Like I have a Facebook account, but I'm never on there. So as far as sharing information, I don't think that this is a new concept. I think what it is that all of a sudden Apple is saying, well, this is what we're thinking about. And so pure Apple style, it's not that like they're first to it, but all of a sudden people are paying attention to it now, if that makes sense. So, oh, here, I want to get so tech for your needs. This is going to be my first time using Mac OS before the year is over. So, tech for your needs. I'm going to get a Mac Mini. I'm already invested 90% in the Apple ecosystem. Any recommendations for a newbie? Well, I think that's the thing. Do you want that portability? And are you in a position that you can wait? And of course, I see you, JW Miles, as far as the bathtub picks. We'll get into that in a sec. But uh, it's interesting because I spent a decade in Android, which I still use, but it has been interesting because iPhone seems to be the gateway into Mac OS, iPad OS even. And I had all of these devices. I had all of these Macs. Even in my company, I purchased Macs for my business, and I was still Android. And I would say that as much as the garden or the walled garden is frowned upon, and people feel like you're stuck, I don't know. From a creative perspective, it's been a huge time saver because like this iPhone, this 12 mini that I've got, I do a lot of filming with this thing, like a lot of B-roll shots, a lot of just stuff that I do out in the community. I love to just airdrop that thing. I really do. Because the issue is with Google Photos and even using like Drive, it's great, but then there's this whole level of like processing that it's trying to do. So you're like trying to like move files over that you've uploaded, whether into Drive or Photos, and like the whole thing is just grinding because it's like trying to transcode it first before you can actually move it over or download it. So I do love that. But as far as that's concerned, the the what were we saying? Oh yeah, for Mac OS. So yeah, I think it does come down to portability. Can you wait? And if like the M1 has really changed my career trajectory as just a creator on the platform, even in business. So I've spent almost a year with the M1 since November. So let's just say since November. And it has really just leveled up so many things for me. But I know that that's not the case for everybody. And I don't have unlimited funds. So I look at every purchase very carefully that I make. But I've also said on this channel, I review tech, and this is my business. So anything that I purchase, I'm not the kind of person that like goes and grabs something. I'll test it for like a couple of weeks and then I'll send it back. Because for me, if it's in my business, it's an asset in my business. Now, if it's not working, if it's broken, if it's literally just not functioning properly as it should, then yeah, then I need to take it back. But not for the title, not for YouTube. I don't need to do that whole thing of like, oh, I'm returning it after 2 weeks. if you ever see a video from me like that, it's because I am so frustrated with it. I'm so, like, done with it, but I that's just not how I run. I run this channel like a business. So if it comes in as an asset, it goes into my tax returns as an asset, and it gets, like, you can draw down on that asset. So you can write these things off. Anyway, not a business channel. I do have another channel where I talk about business. Anyway, let's get back here. Bathtub pictures are not an issue. It's known set of sicko pictures. I get it. Um, and I think too, as the end user, being able to turn that off, that's pretty interesting too. So I don't want to necessarily touch on it too much, but I do understand. I actually work with individuals that have been in that space. I do work with adults and children, and I do a lot of psych care. And so I completely get it. I have a lot of individuals that I work with that have a very, let's just say, unfortunate past. And so let's let's bring the tone back up. And I apologize. So let's see. Hashing process. They are not scanning your photos, but still on device monitoring. It's a massive blow to iPhone privacy. I think that's the interesting thing as far as them touting privacy and people's devices. I hear you. People do need to read and understand it better, including myself. Um, so yeah, I'm in the same boat. So tech for your needs. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I use Android since HTC G1 days. Man, the original Google phones. Oh my gosh. Uh, that I get it. Like where people were like, "Whoa, this is." You want to talk about people with the M1? We're beta testing those original Google phones and Android. Oh my goodness, we were testing for years. It was fun though, because you could like eventually like you could start customizing things and doing some pretty cool things with Android. But yeah, it wasn't polished like it is now. Like it's a beautiful OS right now. So Renee Ritchie put it best as it's removing the sanctity of your device. And thanks for your work. Thanks, Vegan Games. Yeah, so I do follow Renee. I haven't seen any of his anything this week, but I think that's an issue that people might have is, well, like this is my hardware, this is my device. I should be able to use it how I want to without big brother, big sister, whoever kind of like looking in, and I don't know about it. And I also know from the other standpoint is that we have gotten to a point where, and this is interesting. So, like, I think this will kind of be aligned, but so this phone, most of us have something in our pocket that we can film either in 1080p or 4K with. So when I used to vlog pretty regularly, and I miss vlogging, I would come in with a mirrorless camera, interchangeable lenses, and you'd be out in public, right? And it would be so interesting to see either someone that works in an establishment and see. I was always very careful, like when I would vlog, like not just like pointing my camera everywhere at everybody. But the interesting thing is that when you're walking around with that camera and you're filming yourself and maybe you're capturing some B-roll, nobody really pays attention to the fact that you have this thing. Because I've had people say that they felt uncomfortable with that camera that I had in my hand, and certainly, like, if anybody were to ever come up to me while I was vlogging and say, "Hey, could you not, like, show that or could you delete it or whatever?" And, of course, that was rare, but I did have a couple of instances where people just didn't wanna be on camera, and like I said, it wasn't like I was pointing it at them. I think they were just worried that I had it pointed at me and they were somehow in the shot, which, I tried to shoot at an aperture that would allow for that blur, but nobody's like really focusing on the fact that this is dangerous. If you think about it, like you can do a lot of harm with this thing. Like you can film people doing things that if they're not paying attention and doing something that, they would be embarrassed about, and that fits in your pocket. Yet people are giving me static about the fact that I've got a mirrorless camera with an interchangeable lens. I can't hide it. And certainly if you see me like pointing it at you, you know that I'm probably filming you versus like setting up an iPhone. I don't know how in the world did this conversation, how did we get in this direction? But that being said, I just kind of wanted to make that point of, when you're out in public, obviously be mindful of those people that you are filming. And if you do vlog, I'd love to hear your take on that, because I always thought about how, like, dangerous, like, the smartphone technology is, like, so like, the camera in this thing and the processor in this thing is better oftentimes than a lot of the cameras that are on the market. So, Jerry, you're tired of rumors. You are tired of rumors. So, Jerry, you gotta check out his channel. And Jerry, I saw, I think it popped up on my feed. I have been I've been, like, crazy busy just trying to do a ton of research, just trying to, um and like I said, I'm a healthcare provider, so I'm trying to help out on the front lines as much as possible as, like, cases are spiking, and so I've got, like, teams that I work with, and so I haven't been able to spend as much time consuming YouTube. But Jerry, you got some good stuff there, man, and I really appreciate you, all the stuff that you're doing, the testing that you're doing, and I think that's the thing. Like, you know, when I'm testing and doing that level of content, like where I'm testing the SSDs and, like, the throughput of the Thunderbolt ports or a display, that takes a lot of work. I mean, it could take me minimum a week to film everything, research, try to do a rough cut in the timeline of everything. And sometimes, like, you do a rough cut of everything, you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. Like, I tested this, but I forgot to, like, film a section of it, or where are my notes? So you got to go back to your notes, because you try to put as much in the graphs or the notes as possible. And I get that as a creator, if you're looking at this as a business, and people look at, like, subscriber counts, like, immediately, like the vanity metric. And then you also look at the views. And so you got a lot of creators out there that are getting a ton of views on just sort of these titles of what's coming next, what's in the pipeline. And I get it from a business standpoint, because you want eyeballs, you want attention. I just think that you have to be, and creators should do what they want. It's their channel. Okay. Just like this is my channel, creators should do what they want. And it's up to the community to decide, like, whether they want to give that their time. But, the interesting piece is that, from a business standpoint, you want eyeballs. For me, though, I look at it in a way that is as hard as that content is to make, like the reviews and the testing and things that I do, that can take me like a week sometimes. Sometimes it could be a few days, but I've spent even weeks on certain testing and filming. It's I get the fact that maybe you just want to do a little bit of research, look through some, headlines, grab some stories, and then create some content around that. One, yes, it's like salacial titles and it gets people's attention. Two, maybe you're just passionate about it. Like, you are passionate about the rumors. Like, you are just as excited as the community is about the rumors, and you want to talk about it. And this is a great platform to do it. But I know that it does seem in the tech community that it's just one sort of aligned headline after another, and it sounds very similar. And so as I was saying earlier, that I do really try to look at it from a time standpoint, and your investment, in that, the rumor's there. Apple's going to release it when Apple either can or wants to. And when you have these headlines like, well, they've been in production for months. Well, okay, the whole thing, just the chips, just the board. They got to get this thing to market. And Apple, when the M1s came out, I immediately, boom, I ordered it on my phone, like, in the like, what was it? In my time, it was it was either 5 in the morning, I think, or 6 in the morning, my time, just trying to get the M1 mini. And I got a 1 terabyte and 16 gigs of RAM. And so anything that was built to order, as soon as, like, that pre sort of sale went, like that first, like, hour or whatever, all of a sudden, like, first few minutes, all of a sudden people were, oh, well, I now I can't get the built to order. Now I've got to either get, like, a base model, or I've got to wait a couple of weeks, and then a couple of weeks turn into 3, and then a month, and depending on what country you're in, because one thing I want to be mindful of is I'm in the United States, I'm in Colorado, and yet we do have easier access to these devices. And I think about the people that put in an order even the next day and had to wait 3 weeks to a month. So maybe that's something that I wanted to talk about too, is that if you are truly into the M1X, like if the Mac is like what you're after, like the 14-inch or 16-inch that is supposed to come soonish, then I would really think about, okay, what is my budget? What are the things that will get me like that you can say to yourself, this is definitely what I need, what I'm looking for. What are some deal breakers? Like, what would, like, completely, like, break the deal for you? And the reason why I'm saying this is that once this stuff goes on sale and we start customizing as we do here on the platform, and then all of a sudden, you're like, "Well, I might wanna wait for the tests to come out." Like, I might and that's fine. Like, you're gonna start seeing a bunch of Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve from a video editing standpoint, developers, programmers coming in with their setups, showing you what you can do, how many virtual machines you can run, and test on, your audio, community that out there just using, not only just like even just native like Logic Pro, but anything that are the plugins, how do they function, and all of that, and you'll get consumed with it. In the meantime, I'm just saying be careful because we still have logistically shipping delays, manufacturing delays, and so I would just be careful to wait too long because then that you might end up waiting much longer because of those delays. That's a prediction that I have. I certainly hope that Apple has done a good job with those logistics and dealing with those partners, because as someone who I had a clothing company for a while, many, many years ago, another lifetime ago, and I can say, like, when you're trying to figure out logistics overseas, and I'm not the one, like, flying over there checking things out, you get a hang up. You just never know. And so the demand could be like even more so for this next iteration because of the adoration for the M1, because people were so everybody's excited about that. Like they were so excited about the M1. And something else that I want to sort of play to and speak to. I'm doing a lot of talking, by the way. Feel free to, whatever in the chat. But what I will say is that I also don't want anybody to ever feel like they're missing out because you're not drinking the Kool-Aid of the M1. I I've said on my videos time and time again that in my use case, in my lane, the M1 has been fantastic. I haven't really had any issues. But there are those of you that need certain apps to function, which again, getting better with Apple Silicon, that optimization with developers. So the developer community is really paying attention because there's a lot of hype around these chips. And so I just want people to feel like they're not like you like you have to get it because everybody else gets it. I know that sounds like really simple, but I think there's a level of validation there that people feel like, well, they're missing out on something. However, if you have a capable device, you've got a PC that maybe you built or a laptop that you have, and it is serving your needs, like it's serving your needs, then I don't see any issue with you like waiting and maybe not even buying into it. Hey man, what's up? I'm pointing down here, but there you are. Alex, what's up? You're bored with these rumors now? Uh, yes. Yeah, you upload? I haven't seen dude, Alex. First off, Alex Gear and Tech, first my man, 10K. So congratulations, my friend. And here's the thing, like I really want to pivot just kind of quickly to that is like putting in that work because Alex, when you and I met on Clubhouse, were you like roughly at like, I don't know, 600 subs or just under 1,000 or something like that? And so what I will say, Mark, again, I keep pointing down at the chat. Mark, what's up, brother? But Alex, dude, you've been grinding, you've been putting in the work, and that's what I would say to anybody is that you just got to put in that work. And it's not just the subs, but the fact that Alex and all of these creators like just continuing to level up the storyline, like the narrative. He's, Alex is even getting creative, like with his intros. Man, I love it because so one of the reasons why I'm really good at talking in front of the camera is because I'm an only child. So I used to talk to myself all the time. I am awesome at talking to the camera because it's just like another imaginary friend. So Alex definitely puts in some creativity in the intro and doing these cuts back and forth where he's like the character. So you'll have to check out his channel for sure. But I'm just I'm super stoked for creators out here that it's not just on the backs of like the M1 or the iPhone 13 or even the iPhone 12 or anything like that. It's it's exciting. It's been exciting, and it wants us to level up that content for all of you, for the community. So I don't ever want to feel like I'm phoning this thing in. So if I am talking about a rumor or if I am kind of like you see a title like that, don't expect me to spend too much time in that space. It might just be like everybody's got their take. And I try very hard to not watch a ton of content before I go in with my own angle because I don't want that to be like I don't want that to really shift unless I'm like wrong. And I'll always like if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I'll tell you that I'm wrong. But I I like to kind of just come from my own angle. And really my angle is business. It always comes down to business. So as much as the rumors are, with what's coming out, I am excited about that M1X Mac Mini. So I am, but I always look at it from a logistics standpoint. I always look at it from a way of how much time it's going to give me back in my production, my work. Um, so it'll be interesting to see. And I'm actually even curious because on one of my previous videos that I talked about with gaming, I think a lot of people are looking to continue to push that a little bit. And so again, it's not going to be a matter of the GPU managing that, but I talked about metal and the issue with that. And so if Molten VK, if that project continues to grow and gets a little bit of push behind it, then maybe we could start seeing developers saying, maybe this is something like maybe we should pay attention to it. But it all comes down to time and money. It really does. And so like when you look at the PC market, laptop, desktop, and consoles, you're like, all right, well, we are making the lion's share of our cash there. Like this whole like Mac OS, ecosphere here is like nothing. So I think it's going to take a lot of hype. I think it's going to take some acquisitions. I think it's going to take somebody to push some money behind this so that whole thing with Vulcan, and that Molten VK, that we're going to start to see those titles come in. So anyway, and I appreciate you too, Alex. And so so you've got Alex just editing now, but yeah, new 13 video tomorrow. All right. So I'll check it out, Alex. And of course, Mark, am I supposed to like this stream? Feel like I'm supposed to like this stream. Let me know. Yeah, you know what? Hey, if you want, it's the community here is they're welcome to like. They're welcome to share, welcome to hang out. And so, like I said, and for some of you that just kind of popped in, I talked about this. Obviously, the title is around the Apple rumors, but I'm testing this mic out, the Samsung Q9U, and I did a video that'll be coming out because I feel like I've neglected my audio folks who are always looking to live stream, podcasts, stream like gaming. And so I did a video on it. It'll be interesting too because I was playing uh, a game on my kid's PC, and I won't spoil it for you. But let's just say that I was testing with Valorant, and I got kicked out because I was adjusting stuff, and I was like, I wasn't in the game, and of course, my teammates were kind of like, "Where is this guy?" And what, and I think I got reported or whatever, so I got kicked out of the game, and then I couldn't go back into the game, so I had to go into like Modern Warfare. So just to test it out, just to test out the fact that I had this like PC screaming over on my right, and of course a mechanical keyboard and everything. And so I wanted to do a live stream just to have a point of reference to show that this thing is just plug and play pretty much. I don't have like any third party streaming app running. I'm just running it literally through the YouTube studio. So I appreciate that, Alex. It's interesting because as you know, my friend, when you've got like the road, like if you've got a setup like in, an interface, audio interface, handheld recorder, anything that will allow you to adjust like manually with the dials, I always recommend going with an interface like once your budget allows, because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, my life is so much easier. But a lot of these plug and plays are good. And one of the things that I had talked about in the video that'll come out was that the cables have a ferrite core. So it's just I don't know if you can see, yeah, the ferrite core, and so that helps eliminate a lot of that that's in your studio and like laptops, phones, or any of that EMI is what it's called. And so again, I won't spoil too much of the video, but it's for the community out there that's always asking me about microphone recommendations. So let's see, Mark. That sounded a little hot. Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna help Ace Rocks Tech with his sounds for his stream tonight with Viper. Oh man, I've been seeing some of Viper stuff. I've been Viper and we're cool. Like I just haven't been able to catch a lot of his live streams, but I have been either like if they pop up, I will definitely turn it on and listen in. I'm gonna ask him to help me troubleshoot mine too. My Rodecaster Pro, sure, SM7B 2020 iPad Pro. So are you running that? So you're running that through your iPad Pro? Because and the reason why I ask is I wanted to do a really simple setup where I wanted because this will plug in directly into the iPad, but the issue with the Studio app, or at least within YouTube, is that it is not very friendly in iPad OS and iOS. Imagine, you know. So that's why running this through the M1 Mac Mini right now. But it does run like I can record a podcast or do anything like that. But as far as like a third party app, that's probably what you're going to have to use anyway. But as far as a Roadcaster, he's going live every day this month. I know. So I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to that. That's just been another issue too with three boys. They all play soccer, and I've had matches, I've had practices. I'm hustling, man. I'm hustling. My wife is like we divide and conquer. She works full time. Fortunately, she's mostly at home, working from home at this point, just because of the pandemic. However, it's still a juggle. Oh, it's a juggle. If you don't play soccer, then you don't know. But anyway, it's been a little bit busy, but yeah. So yeah, that goes into the dongle. So the audio ducking out can happen anywhere in the setup. I know that's okay. So that's another thing too, Mark. You're right. The more stuff you have, the more points of failure, the more connections that you have is like for sure like that. Then your points of failure start to be like you just multiply at that point. So JW says, what is crazy about Apple designed silicon and TSMC foundries manufacturing is the devices are so powerful that the thermal container of an iPhone can't dissipate the heat when running full speed. And so I know that's something else that I need to dive into as well, JW, because I know the whole thing about the A15. It's not the M1, and that whole sort of thermal footprint in that container. And, what is really exciting, and I didn't get this, I was talking about Apple Silicon in the when was it? When did the iPad Air Gen 4 come out? So when I got the iPad Air Gen 4, when that came out, and I was able to run on that chip, put in Sony A7S III footage that ran through a LumaFusion timeline without any issue. Now, again, of course, optimization of the operating system, optimization of that software, LumaFusion for sure. But you're talking about a very heavy codec on that, and that's another point that I wanted to make too. Is that it's funny because I see in the comment sections uh, of a lot of folks like of their YouTube videos are like, why do all these like YouTubers they always talk about the video editing. What about us that just are regular folk that don't care about the video editing? And my point is, now, of course, again, you got to think about there's the hardware and the like the operating system and the software and that optimization. But if we can test to a degree that starts pushing that thermal envelope, that capacity, like we can ramp up the CPU, we can ramp up the GPU, we can start getting that swap happening like with the RAM and swap memory this isn't new. It's just it's a little bit different with this memory. And so I think as much as it might not interest you, it's a great benchmark to show you that we can like push these machines to do quite a bit. So if you're thinking about doing something that is not even anywhere near that level, I'm pretty certain it's going to run as it does for me, 4 Chrome browsers, 4 different Chrome browsers with about 30 or 40 tabs each open. You're gonna be fine. Of course, Chrome, I've talked about how it being a memory hog, but I think that's just the point, and I know that video editing may not interest everybody, but it is a great benchmark. But I also I wish I could do more development and programming type of, content for you. So, like, where I could kind of run through some of that code. I do run just parallel. So I've kinda worked with a couple virtual machines, and I'm testing that, and I think those are important too, to be able to allocate enough resource to those virtual machines and to run Windows. I'm actually running Windows 11 within Parallel 17 beautifully. I mean, it's great. So those are I think those are important tests as well, because I think for those of you that might be interested in testing what you're developing in a Windows environment, we don't have boot camp functionality unless you are looking for like help, like crazy workarounds to do it. And but it's not as simple as just like boot camp was, at least in my experience and from what I know. If there's something different out there, please let me know and I will test it. But I have boot camp running on some of my Intel Macs, and Windows runs better on that on boot camp on those Macs than they have in a lot of my Windows based laptops and desktops even. But yeah, no, it really is interesting. Yeah, parallels. I used, VMware Fusion. Wonder if they're still I think they are. And see, I used to use, I haven't really done a lot of research with VirtualBox, but I used to use VirtualBox back in the day because opens it was free. And I think if it's still around, that could be an option for you. And something else that, like, while we're on that too, is I think that parallels, yes, it came down to, I think, pretty much now a subscription model. I had a legacy, account with them, so, like, it was like one of those deals that I had, like, where I paid once and I got it for a lifetime. However, that was at the whatever iteration that it was at that point, but I if I needed to upgrade, then I had to move myself over to where everybody else is now, which for me to pay, I think it's like 79 bucks a year, for the plan that I have. And I know, like, money is tight for a lot of people, but to be able to use like a container to how like hold Windows and to play games and to test and to run as if I'm running completely on a separate like system, it's worth it to me. It's worth it to me from a testing standpoint, and it might be worth it to you. So, of course, Mark just howdy to the chat and shout out to Lurk Squad. All right, shout out. Good, Mark. So, oh, Mark, weren't you in was it a Twitter Spaces or a Clubhouse or something that I was in for a little bit? I think Alex might have been in that one too, and I can't even remember. I haven't spent a ton of time in Clubhouse as of late because if any of you have even tried Clubhouse, it gets a little you go down a rabbit hole and then you don't know where you are anymore because you've ended up in some room just because it's just like you're like, "Oh, let me check this out and let me check that out." So it can be pretty addictive, and I think probably too, like, considering the fact that there's been a level of isolation that the human race hasn't really dealt with, like, ever, or at least in a really, really long time, at least in modern history, that, people it's great to connect with people live. I wish that we could all literally right now, like, you're in the chat, and I appreciate you so much, that we could hang out and talk like through YouTube. Like I wish you could talk back to me without having to type. So Clubhouse is far from dead, at least here in the tech rooms. And yeah, don't go into those. But yeah, so I don't think Clubhouse is dead. You know what I have seen though is this evolution where there were a lot of, and I will say that I will say that their marketing messes up everything. People that and I'm in I'm in marketing. We ruin everything. And so I think that those rooms that are trying to help people grow and trying to get on a list and whatever, like, hey, listen, it is your business. I've got businesses outside of YouTube as well. Um, but I do think it can get a little interesting, like when people are kind of building that list and they say they want to help you, but you don't really feel helped versus like some of these other rooms that you go into and you feel like you've been heard and you don't feel like somebody's like talking at you, but they're like with you and really trying to help you. And so I do think you have to filter just through anything, right? Because I did a tweet the other day about Twitter isn't toxic. I don't know what you're talking like. I just sort of making a joke, and it really is about like where you spend the most of your time. Because if you venture outside of the garden of the spaces that you're in, the community, the tech community, or wherever, ooh, it definitely can get toxic. And there are a lot of keyboard warriors out there for sure. But 100% on Clubhouse rabbit hole, it's now been reduced to the the end of my dog walks for sure. And I think so that's another dangerous thing too with Clubhouse where you can minimize it and then it just sort of plays like a podcast in a sense. So I think that's going to be an interesting study as someone who I podcasted for years and wanna start back up in the space again. I'm just kind of thinking of some concepts and really some people that I would love to collaborate with on some podcasts. But Clubhouse is really nice because you get sort of that live feedback because you could be listening to me talk about how to start up your business or to move your side hustle over to your main hustle. I just use that because it's just the general term that most people know. Boy, we've been going for 50 minutes. See, I can just talk. Anyway, I love those, but I think the thing with Clubhouse is that the immediate feedback that people might get because there's also that whole thing of like the chat is a great this is a great example as well. You want to ask a question, but maybe you don't feel as sure of yourself of the question, or just you might be shy or whatever, and somebody else asks that question. And I'm sure many of us, like you're in that position, like, ooh, thank goodness they asked. I had the same question, but I was just afraid to ask it. And especially with Clubhouse, because it's not like typing, you're literally talking and asking for help or those questions. So, Mark, yeah, they go back and forth, popcorn style, organic convo happens best that way. Long as it's kept tiny bit in the general direction moving forward. But yeah, it is. It is good stuff, Mark. And Alex, I'll get you into no topic, no worries, breeze shooting, sprinkle of tech, troubleshooting, but general hanging out is what it is. It's not as tech focused as you'd think with so many techies. And I think that's the thing too. Like I try to find as much of a balance as possible with the content that I'm making. Like I realize, so here's the thing. I realize I could go in a in a direction that certainly when you look at the vanity metric, I could get at a certain level, but I I want to like this for the long term. Like I want to love what I'm doing because what is the point of turning a hobby into like a career if you don't like it? Like you have choice to do this. Like nobody's forcing me to do YouTube. And so like I want to feel good about it. And so as much as I kind of want to talk about rumors, I just want to be very careful and tread very lightly there. And I want to make it meaningful. Like I don't want to just throw up B-roll of like, well, this is the angle here, and this is and thank goodness there's a great community out there of creating these renders, beautiful renders, by the way. And so I just want to make sure that I'm also providing a little bit of a different context as well when it comes to like the phones and the cameras. Because again, like when you look at the iPhone 13, sounds like it is confirmed it's going to be the 13, according to what I saw on Mac Rumors that somebody like showed a picture of a label that it is iPhone 13. It should be iPhone 13. The 12S, I mean, come on, seriously. Like the whole unlucky number thing, let's make 13 the lucky number. Make 13 your number today. Like that's the lucky number. But Um, I think that's the thing is like just everybody's got their own context, and I just want to make sure that it's sustainable for me too. That's why I like to do the testing. That's why I like to do reviews. I need to review more accessories. I've had a lot of you reach out to me about accessories. I have accessories. I just need to do more of that, and I will. So I think that's the thing. It's like peppering in a little bit of like, well, let's talk about this rumor, but not too much. That's my piece of context. Here's my testing. Here are the accessories. I kind of want to just create like playlists that you can sort of go through like whatever interests you. So I do treat it like a business and trying to make it sustainable for myself, but also for the community that's looking for something specific. So that's why I do create those playlists because if you don't have any interest in cameras, then don't go look at my camera stuff. That's fine. Like, why would you? So anyway, um, Twitter Spaces, but without the glitches, crashes, bugs, and without the distraction of Twitter right there in the background still. So that I think that's another thing too is like when we look at copying and stuff like Twitter Spaces trying to be Clubhouse. I get it. Yeah. Um, I will say though, I spend a lot more time on Twitter, and if I'm already there and I see some people that I want to hang out with, might as well hang out with them. So I think Twitter has the right idea of I understand from a business model, it's like, well, how do we keep them on Twitter more? And then how do we monetize this? I get that piece. But then there's also well, you're there, just like you're on YouTube. YouTube wants you to watch more videos versus like Clubhouse. I know eventually, like, it's going to have so many more bells and whistles to it, but you do have to make that effort. Like, you're in Clubhouse and you're kind of in it. Now, of course, yes, you can multitask because you can like minimize it. Things are still playing in the background, and you can go on Twitter, you can go on your Instagram or wherever and still do those things. But it will be interesting to see how this all plays out because it's never about like who's first. It's always about who can just do it better. You know, perfect Apple. And I think I even said that in my one of my videos about the iPhone 13. Like the biggest thing about 120 hertz display is like, yeah, that gets people really excited. At least the people that know what that looks like and what that experience is, but I can't wait to hear, and it's fine if I'm wrong, but I can't wait to hear to say like Apple is just gonna do it better. 120 hertz is just magic, and everybody else has been doing it for years now, but now we've perfected it. So yeah, Alex, Twitter has a lot of potential, especially for people who already have a big following. I think so too, but I also feel like it is interesting. So if you've reached out to me on Instagram, I apologize. Like if I don't, I I guess I'm probably a little bit like I don't want to say old school or purist or whatever. Like I love Instagram for what it started out as, and I'm not there to necessarily have like conversations with people. That's why I always say at the end of my videos, hit me up on Twitter or in the comment section. And so what I will say is that like I want to feel like I can like I'm having a conversation with you. And I know people like in the DMs like, yeah, but you're having a conversation. I don't know. Well, and especially for Twitter and for YouTube, when you post something in there and you're hanging out with me in the comment section, you're also helping someone else out. Because if you have a question, like Mark had some hang up about like his audio and the whole ducking issue. And so like if I have a video and I might be able to help, and I can't be tech support for everybody, but if you ask me the question of like, hey, I'm getting this like buzzing sound or whatever, and I might say, well, hey, do you have a cable that's got a ferrite core on it? Do you have your phone sitting next to your laptop? What are your connections? And so people can have the same thing happening to them and like, "Oh my gosh, thank God this guy asked about it because I'm having the same issue," instead of the DM on Instagram, because then really I'm the only one who sees it and you do too. And so you're helping the community by hanging out with me there because again, you might have something that aligns with someone else. I'm just saying. JW, doing it first or better isn't really the point that Apple goes after. It's about refining and it's based on the available hardware technology at the time. So hard to explain in a text. Yeah. So JW, and like I said, from a business standpoint, I completely get it. I think people get angry about Apple when they kind of come out and it's revolutionary because I think that they're thinking, Apple's not innovating. However, they are innovating, but it's just like with Google Wallet and Google Pay and the whole that whole ecosystem. I was using that on my Android devices years before Apple Pay, but I was using it at probably 3 places because it didn't get any traction. It worked, and the funny thing was is I was at a store that they had set up that system, and I remember, like, on the screen, it popped up and it said it would accept, Google Pay, and I remember popping my phone up, like, on that, like, keypad, and all of a sudden, like, the person at the cashier was like, "What just happened?" Like, she didn't see me pull out a credit card or anything like that, and I tapped it with my phone because they hadn't seen that before. This predated Apple Pay, and nobody got trained on it. They didn't even know it was turned on. They didn't know that, like, it was legit. And so when you talk about beta testing, like the M1, and when we were talking earlier about the first Google phones, we were beta testing Android for sure. And so, yeah, like anybody that would accept that form of payment, I would use it. And oftentimes people would say, like, wow, I've never seen anybody do that before. But yeah, Apple is just they're brilliant at marketing, they're brilliant at storytelling, and even part of that is, like, time, right? So, maybe I left my wallet in the car, but be careful if you leave your wallet in the car because you never know, it might not be there. Or you forgot your credit cards at home or whatever, and it's nice because people once you put your pants on, I hope anyway, then oftentimes you're putting this in your pocket, but I think plenty of people probably run out without their pants and just their phone too, but that's a whole different video altogether. But I think the point is that, you know, they're able to kind of show the connection that people are making. And I know it sounds silly, like people drooling over the fact that you just put your phone up here, just kind of bring it up to pay for your soda or your sandwich or whatever. And they have a brilliant way of capturing that to say, like, that's what I want. And it's not just the storytelling, I get it, they're refining the technology. It's been available, and Apple's like, "Okay, well, here it is. How do we make this better?" Because there's only 3, 4, maybe a handful of stores that take that what is that thing? Google Pay, Google Wallet? What are they calling it? Android can't figure out what their naming systems here. So, I get that piece, with the hardware and really the whole ecosystem because they're manufacturing and have control over the hardware and even more so now. And I'll be interested to see if the M1X they've gotten rid of the retimer I've talked about with the Thunderbolt, the controller, because that really is like repeating the signal for Thunderbolt because Apple wants to be all in on what is under their roof and controlling every aspect there and the software. I think from an optimization standpoint, I don't disagree with it. And you can say like, well, it puts other businesses of, out of the game that they're not utilizing their chips or they're not utilizing whatever technology, radios, any of that. But I mean, Qualcomm is innovating. And I, not that I can say anything as far as details that I might have information on. I know people that work with Qualcomm. They're fine. They're doing great because they're working on technology that we're still using in other devices, and they're all obviously working on technology that is in direct competition with Apple Silicon. So, just saying. I mean, they're looking to pivot. On the 13, I have just seen a recent dummy iPhone 13 model with smaller speaker cutouts than the iPhone 12. I wonder how much people care about sound quality on smartphones. You know, Alex, that is an awesome question, man, because I do try to look at I honestly like if you look at my videos, I do try like sometimes I nerd out on certain things, but I also try to look at it from a consumer standpoint. And here's what I will say, because this is a great question. I have 4K TVs with 120 hertz refresh rate, like flat panel, like sitting, like hanging on a wall. I prefer to watch and consume content on my phone or the iPad. Beautiful, beautiful display, by the way, the M1 iPad Pro. Whether it's worth a couple of grand, that's again, that's probably for another video, or we can certainly chat about it. But I will say is that if I don't have my, Bluetooth headphones or, like, my AirPods in, I don't necessarily I guess I don't, like, really think about the sound because I'm already saying to myself, "Well, I'm watching it on my phone, so I don't expect some, like, amazing sound." So I think that is a great question, and I'm not sure how much they do care about it. Because I'm also an outlier, I think, where if you come in my home and you see like a television, it's not on very often. Like if we're intentional and if we want to watch something, we stream everything. So we don't even have cable. So it's not like the TV's on. It's only on like if we're watching something. But yeah, again, I prefer to consume it on these devices. And I know when Android, like even Samsung was coming out with devices in their Galaxy line, and they were touting the display, and I think, even some of the speaker quality, and it was, like, fascinating to see because I think Samsung was really pushing things quite a bit at the time, but yeah, I think that's certainly something to consider, and I think, some people might say like, "Well, why would you even care?" But as creators on the platform, I've done tests between the iPad Pro speakers and the M1 MacBook Air. And of course, in my testing, the iPad Pro speakers sound like awesome. And I think like if you're using that as like a primary consumption device, then it probably would mean something to you. It really would. Sound quality on smartphones has been what it is for a while. I know the voice pickup is great on the 12 Pro Max. For example, right now, Kevin's great audio sounds great here on my iPhone. Hey, Mark, watching. See, and that's the thing too. Like, not even streaming like Netflix or Hulu or whatever, but YouTube videos. I predominantly use this device for YouTube. And so I guess, Alex, that would be a great point as to let's say, because we put music, oftentimes I'll put like a music track underneath my video, like my A roll, because I think it helps sort of, move things along, kind of helps with the cadence and it's a little bit of a distraction, but I run it at a very low, I run it at like negative like 38, 36 to 38 decibels, negative, that is, just so that it's just a little bit in the background. And so I think if you have a device that you're not picking that up, like, I think that's the point. Like, do you want just a little bit of that in the background? Whereas if you have a smartphone, if you have a setup that isn't picking that up and you're not hearing it, will that matter to you? And I think there are nuances of things that you're watching and consuming, like, and I'm not talking like an action film, although like could be an action film, like certain points that there's like audio in the background and like hearing something happening like in sort of the foreground. And if you're not picking up those details, that might be something that you're missing if you don't have like headphones on. So I think it is definitely something to consider. You're negative 35 dB? Yeah. So I think that's certainly something that I try to be mindful of is to not make it to the point where you're like, dude, I can't hear this guy talking because the music's too loud. So that's a learning process for sure. Um, oh, who's that? M Cha. Hi, good to see you. Welcome. And the iPad Pro speakers are black magic, such an underrated spec. I know, right? It's here we are touting the whole thing of the display, and of course, I know the whole blooming effect and all of that. But yeah, it's if you are going to consume on the iPad Pro, then it is definitely I would say a more immersive experience because of the display. And yeah, and if you're not connected to headphones, I think with the speakers, it sounds pretty great. Gaming, gaming. Um, I typically am not gaming with headphones necessarily. Now, sometimes I'll get a little silly and I might hook up my iPad Pro to my interface that is connected to those monitors back there, those Yamahas. It gets a little silly. I mean, it really does. Like, you can make this thing even more ridiculous as far as, like, what it can do. But, yeah, playing some games on it with the display and those built-in speakers, I think is really nice. And that's the thing too, like, from a gaming standpoint, that's maybe we're on that too. So, like, with iOS, and Apple Arcade and other games that you can play. I mean, my kids play COD Mobile on their iPhones, um, and they're not really using headphones or AirPods or anything. So just up in that experience. Apart from Tenet, somebody screwed that sound design up. Oh man. I just feel I realized I was talking for over an hour. Just need a little sip of something here. There was no rhyme or reason. You know, the reason why I can actually do this. So my wife, she's out of town right now. She's in the mountains. Their sister-in-law came into town, and so hadn't seen her in almost a couple of years now. Has it? Yeah, it's been a while. So anyway, able to travel, and so they're up in the mountains. So I'm hanging out. My dog's one of my dogs hanging out on the floor, just kind of right behind me. Kids are at school, so we can just kind of run this thing however we want to run it until my dogs bark because if somebody like delivers a package or something. But anyway, I didn't really have like a time set on this. I don't know, like if and certainly throw the questions in the chat or whatever. But like I said, I have no problem talking to myself, and that's the interesting thing. Can I just say this? Actually, I am because I'm here, and so are you. Uh, again, I do try to be mindful of people's time, and certainly like videos that I do that are over 10 minutes, especially like ones that can go in like to some great detail where there are sections that you might just be more interested in. Just be mindful of the creators that you're watching because I've had people probably just looking for the numbers, especially like on those SSD tests that I do. And so like if I'm doing like an enclosure or something and testing the SSD, that they'll buy it, they'll test it out, and like, "Hey, this thing doesn't work." And so I say, "Well, did you see time?" Where I said on timestamp 335 that it had to be this SSD, not this like there was like an incompatibility, like it wasn't really compatible or something. So do be careful. Like if you are trusting a YouTuber or creator to test for you and to get a little bit of information, just make sure that you're at least I try to provide context. But I know some people are just like, dude, I just want the numbers. Great. If you want the numbers, here, timestamps. Just make sure that you know the context of how I got those numbers. Because then I'll have people come back to me and say, I can't get my numbers like that. I can't get that benchmark. And I'm like, rewind and see like how I got that benchmark. So, I try to give as much as I can. Listening to you talk to yourself is oddly pleasing. I would say that my family says the same thing because I don't think anybody's ever hearing me necessarily. I think they hear me, but whether they hear me, they're listening, they're engaged. I'm not sure, but I appreciate that. And that's another thing too, JW, and anybody that's in the audio space. I've had people ask me about certain microphones, like I said, the Samsung Q9U that I've had for several months, and I've been needing to review it. And they'll ask me about my audio, like my editing or like my mic setup. And the one piece of value that I can give you is just be careful that mics are tuned to your voice. Uh, Monitors in the back, you have to tune them to your space. Those aren't just like stereo speakers; those are reference monitors. Um, and also, too, my editing setup is going to be different than yours. My voice is different than yours. And thank goodness I got a little bit of my voice back because we had a soccer match the other day, and I'm very calm usually at the games. I used to be a coach for years, and so I did a lot of yelling then. Uh, I mean, of course, lovingly to the team, but it got a little cracked. I mean, like it was off the hook this match. I mean, it was like one just you're just clenching like if you were holding something, you would have broken it. Like you would have just crushed it in your hands because it was like if you bite your nails, it would have been one of those. And so I was definitely screaming at that game as far as like just an excitement. So my video that will come out as soon as I finish editing it, I sounded like I gargled with gravel. So, I do have a deeper voice, but it was rough. So the fact that I actually did a test with a microphone when my voice wasn't the best. So anyway, um, Once you get over the "Is that how I sound?" then yeah, probably can somewhat enjoyable, yeah, especially with great audio. And oh, your daughter, well, and one thing, Mark, yeah, you're right. I think the fear is not so much being on camera, but like my kids, anytime I've had my kids on my channel, and especially when I used to vlog a lot, they were like, "That's how I sound?" They couldn't listen to themselves for a while. I'm like, "Yeah, that's how you sound." So but I get that whole thing of, like, putting yourself out there, being in front of the camera, that is definitely it takes courage to do that. Um, I've lived a crazy life, so this to me pales in comparison to some of the things that I've experienced in my life. But yeah, getting used to the way you sound, I think, is probably one of the bigger hurdles versus the way you look on camera, because you can edit things up, the way that you look on camera. But yeah, JW says my daughter's a keeper, and losing my voice at a soccer match is real. It is, JW. It is. I mean, it is. you know, not just because it's your kids, but like you are in it. And those folks that think that soccer is boring, like, all right, I get in the United States, American football, hit them, going quick and whatever. This is nonstop, folks. This is literally like ball is changing possession so quickly, and shots on target, like shots on goal. And like I understand, like if you end a game in nil nil, or it's tied, or 1-1 or something like that, that might seem boring. But actually, we had the other night we had a they go into overtime just to try to see if they can not end in a tie. So there are not extra innings, but you get extra time based on what the rule is for the club that you're playing for. But yeah, no, it's a lot. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, JW. Shout out to you, man. Can't wait to see which sports my 11-month-old ends up enjoying. I'm telling you, soccer, it's a great physicality, but physical fitness for sure. Like every muscle is worked, cardio, and team building. Like my boys are amazing kids all around because they've grown up with a team since they were like 4. So they've always realized like it's not just about me. And that translates in life for sure. Um, I lost my voice during the Euros. I thought soccer was coming home. It didn't. It went to Rome. Yes, it did. It did. I mean, I can't even imagine. I've even at home, yeah, you're like screaming at the TV with those matches. Who was I watching? Who was I watching? Oh my gosh. I'm totally drawing a blank here, but somebody was talking about going to one of those matches in another country. Oh my gosh, like it's on the tip of my tongue. And he was talking about going with his father-in-law, and it was one of those things like where you go to this match and no children, and it was mostly men. Like it was kind of like no women and children kind of thing. Like we're going to this match because it's going to just get flipped at this, like in this setting. Like you've got to like watch your back. It's intense. So you see like in American football stands, like where people are like trying to throw punches or doing like stupid drunk stuff or whatever. I don't think we have in the United States. I don't think we have anything on some of those matches. And of course, I'm not encouraging the violence, but that is definitely something that people talk about. Like it is a very surreal experience. Not all of them, but some of them that are going to some of these matches, it can be for sure. Um, so iPhone shooting Dolby Vision now. So how to edit Rec 2020 or HDR footage in Final Cut? Question is, can a liquid Retina display be used as HDR? Yeah. So okay. So that's the thing with this is going to be the interesting thing. I talked about this in my latest iPhone. Sort of like I think it's going to be the camera is the big thing. Like people are going to be focused on the 120 hertz refresh rate, but I think the camera is really because it's Apple, shot on iPhone. They're gonna do the all storytelling and the marketing around that. And so that would be the one thing that I would have to really test when it comes to a reference monitor and looking at that footage. Because if it's Dolby Vision, I can't like I think it's gonna be 10-bit. Could it potentially be 12-bit? Well, aren't we hearing about was it the 5A having issues of shooting at 4K 60 and overheating? So this is where I am really intrigued, and this is what you should really be mindful of too if you're looking to do anything sort of heavy with your phone, is what that chipset is gonna do and what that thermal footprint is gonna look like, when filming like that. And like I said, I know not everybody's, like, maybe interested in filming with their iPhone, but I think that's gonna be the interesting piece is to see what they're gonna be if they're even gonna be able to do 12-bit, I don't know. I would love it. You could push the colors around all day long, but as far as the reference, monitor, I think that's where people are gonna find themselves in having an issue with getting color accuracy, and so I can't necessarily I wish I could give you, like, like, yes, like, that this is gonna work. I think that we're gonna start seeing, displays, and we've already seen manufacturers doing it now, where they are trying to, they have their gaming line of monitors, and then they have their professional line of monitors, and I think when you're already spending, like, upwards of a grand or more for an iPhone, and you're like, "Oh, wait, so then I wanna put this in front of," like, now I've gotta get a different monitor because, like, I see my scopes, like, I can color correct based on my scopes, but, like, I it still doesn't look right. So, I don't know if you might have any more context or if anybody does have any more context, but I think that is definitely going to be an issue that might come up with this gorgeous footage, but it's not gonna look like that when you're editing it. So how it's gonna look on the device that you are, um, like you want it to end up on. And if you're throwing and remember too, like if you're putting it on YouTube, YouTube compression, come on. I mean, it's like a video editor nightmare as far as, like, how we try to work with the codec, how we try to correct because it doesn't ever seem to look the way that it does on our monitors. When you look at it on YouTube, it's compressed, and so I've even tried to tweak mine from time to time, and I can get it pretty darn close. So, but yeah, Jay, I don't know that I've you seem like the guy who would know. Well, here's the thing. I will be looking at this, and I appreciate that, Jay. I do. And so I just don't know what the HDR reference monitor, like, I just don't know what those colors are going to look like on, like, even the monitor that I have. So whether you have a 10-bit or even 14-bit with like a LUT and all of that, like Rec 709 or 2020 or whatever you want to look at it, like the monitor behind me is the reference monitor that I use for the majority of the videos that I work with. And so, I can certainly adjust that within the monitor just to see like what it looks like even based on my scopes. Because I trust the scopes more, but obviously I want to see what it's going to look like. And I could even do better than that ViewSonic that's behind me. And I now likely will be upgrading. So let's see. When the teams are evening matched and it's not, oh yeah, yeah, evenly matched. Yeah, it's not just, kickball back and forth, leaving a game and you totally need a nap and a throat lozenge for sure. And that's another thing too, is that, for soccer, that so our boys play in club soccer, and there are rules within the club that once you reach that level, if you haven't reached that level yet, is that we played like rec soccer, like sort of like the local town, and you play those different teams. Well, our clubs, once your child is in, at least in Colorado, they're with this club. They can't just go play and pick up at like a rec team because you got these kids that are like really, really good and like just circles around the other kids. That's not fair. So I do think that there should be a level of competition that is equitable among the teams. Although there are those standout teams. I get it. But I certainly don't agree with, like, a club team coming in and playing like a rec team. I've seen it. It's not pretty, especially with baseball. But for club soccer, again, there's a rule. They say that they can't do it. So if we've ever seen that happen, it's kind of one of those things like, "Hey, is that sanctioned?" Because it's not supposed to be. Let's see. When the team's, slower cuber. Since we were talking football, do you watch Ted Lasso? So I do. I love Ted Lasso. And the interesting thing that Apple has done this year with the drip feeding out, I appreciate it because I can understand binge watching something. I understand like the need to want to like go through several episodes, but the fact that it's released every Friday. And so our family has kind of developed a routine around it where we go to this place, we get these pizzas made for us. Each of us get our own pizza, and we hang out and watch Ted Lasso on Fridays. My wife loves it. I think that the humor is it's so well written. Like, it's not even just like I look at things from cinematography, sound design, and things like that, but obviously from a pop culture standpoint, it is so well written. And the funny thing is I have teenagers, and obviously some of that stuff is just lost on them. Like, they laugh, I think, because we're laughing, but it is so it's funny. And I know some people said that season 2 just isn't the same, but I don't know. Let's just kind of see like how it evolves and like where the characters go. I mean, I think one, I don't want to spoil anything, so maybe I won't. So, um hey, what's up, man? Bear, I haven't dude, I gotta catch some of your videos, man. I gotta catch some of your vlogs. I know we've been hanging out on Twitter. Um, but so one quick hold on a sec. I'm thinking more in terms of expensive HDR reference monitors now with displays, and device like iPad Pro 2020 should be capable. Oh, yeah. So Jay, yeah, you're right. I have been doing some testing, and that's the one thing too, is like when you're trying to calibrate a monitor, I do think that you can get I have done some testing currently with my M1 iPad Pro, looking at the footage that I'm cutting on that monitor, and I'm moving it over here. So whether it's like sidecar or whether I literally have the video, and I just move it over to the iPad. Yes, like I do think that Apple has done a decent job with these displays, because I think everybody thinks that a gorgeous, bright display equates to color accurate. And again, going back to using my kids as an example, so like my son has a gaming monitor that, yeah, the colors pop, but I'm like, you put something that needs to be color accurate on it. Like if you're referencing it, no, it might look bright, but that red is not red, or at least the way that red should have been in camera, or like in person. So I think we might see more of that, being able to utilize these displays, a $2,000 display, basically, if you've got the 1 terabyte and 16 gigs of RAM or whatever the iteration is. Yeah, we're gonna have some very expensive 12.9-inch displays here, to use for our HDR content when the iPhone 13 comes out. So I probably will be trying to utilize it as much as I can. But yes, Bear. So you got to check out Bear. Bear. We were talking about vlogging earlier. How I used to vlog. I love vlogging. That's how I started on YouTube, where I just put a camera up, and there were just only a handful of us vlogging at the time, many years ago. Like, I had a channel in '06 and '07 that I vlogged, and then I restarted this channel in 2011, and I started vlogging. I miss it very much, but not a lot of people care about your life, unless you are reviewing something that, or at least providing them certain level of value. But I do miss the creative aspect. But you got to check him out. Great storytelling, great at what he's doing. Minimal setup as far as what I've seen that you've got. I skate too. I love skateboarding. So just saying, I miss that. Most people cannot afford it. Jay says most people cannot afford a HDR reference monitor, particularly those who shoot with iPhone 12 Pro. But if Apple produces products has liquid retina, they should in theory be able to be used as HDR ref. Yeah, also huge congrats on the new studio. Looks awesome. Oh, like you mean here? I assume that's what you mean. So I need to do a little bit of a reveal of things. So I will. I'm working on that. I've been trying to just tweak things here and there, because I've had this set up for a couple of years now, and I do have another. I wonder. I got to check it out. I don't have my other channel, so I have the secret channel that I haven't promoted or anything. But for those of you that, God, hour and a half we've been going. So anyway, for those of you that are uh, like regulars on the channel, I've left little Easter eggs of what the channel is. It's mostly focused on more of like productivity and business and things that, like, I know how to start a business. I know how to fail. I actually know how to fail at business too. I'm really good at failing, but I fail forward. So I wanted to do something different outside of this tech channel that I have. And so I started a project and I didn't promote it. I haven't tweeted it. I haven't really talked to any of you here in the community about it. And I think I finally I got 100 subscribers without doing any promotion, like whatsoever. I just uploaded the videos. And I think, I will start to share it, and if the community is even interested in that. So, and I'm not trying to promote it here, but how did we get on this topic anyway? What were we talking about? 12 row. Yeah. Anyway, I think oh, you were talking about the studio. Good grief. Like my mind's going like 100 miles an hour. And so what I'm trying to do in the studio is create separate backdrops. And so like this is kind of my main one. And then on my other channel, I have been using this as well, but I have the space. I just need to kind of shift it so that I can have like a different angle for that other channel. So and the thing is I just want to help people and really talk about whether it's like finance or business or just kind of helping them start a channel or just to start something. Because for me, I started with like I came from a very, very poor environment. So it was just me and my mom, very poor. I mean, like I got a paper route so that I could help pay some bills, kind of thing. So that being said, like I kind of know what it's like to bootstrap, and I know what it's like to have like next to nothing. So I want to help people like coming from that angle, not coming from a place. And hey, if you didn't have that background, that's totally fine too. So um, well, let's see. Can't be on my phone right now. Stop to say hi and best wishes, brother. Freddie. Freddie, haven't seen you in a minute, man. Good to see you if you're still here. Jay, thanks. Excellent points. If MacBook Pro has liquid Retina display using mini LED, maybe they will open up for HDR grading straight on the MacBook. So I think that's the thing too, Jay, is that um, we got to look at the whole package here, right? And I am really interested in the display as well. I know we're not talking like you say like mini LED. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, it's beautiful. Yes, but is it accurate? Because the one thing that drove me a little crazy was, and this is with macOS anyway, is trying to calibrate the monitor. Yes, it is a beautiful display, but how come like I'm cutting this video on this MacBook Pro and then all of a sudden I throw it on something else and it's like that doesn't look like it, that's not what it looks like. So I would like to see a little bit more control, honestly. Like, give me a gorgeous display, fine, but let me be able to work with it a little bit more. So to not just from an editing standpoint, but to adjust it. And I know that there is like in system preferences, like you can make some adjustments. I would just like a little bit more control. So that's all I'm saying. Um, Thank you, Jay. And Alex, good work, Kevin. I did the same, but quickly realized I needed more than 4 hours sleep. So park that for now. Yeah, sleep, it's important. It really is important for sure. And as much as I'm hustling and grinding and doing other things, I'm very boring when it comes to I eat almost the same thing every day. I go for a run in the morning. I do exercise. I do sleep more than 4 hours because I had a business, my current business that I own now. I was working 100 hours a week, and you think like that's not possible. It was. I was averaging 15, 16-hour days, 7 days a week to get that thing started. It was, and maybe even more, and it was detrimental to my health. The business still exists, but it was breaking me for sure. So like Gary says, I started because my wife didn't want to hear me talk. Yeah, exactly. And that's what's funny having kids that are especially are that are that are teenagers because well at first like when they were smaller or they were younger rather is people ask you like what you do for a living or what what's what like in your life, and my kids were like, well, he's a YouTuber, and people were like, what, like I do have a career outside of YouTube, but I think for them it was just this sort of, uh, like I was internet famous or I was cool because I had YouTube videos, and I think at the time too they were excited because they were part of the channel. They were in the videos, but as teenagers, it's even funnier now because, um, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the tip, That is awesome. Really, really appreciate that. You didn't not necessarily thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. But really quickly, I wanted to say is that even as teenagers, some of their friends will come over. And like when my son, we were building that PC, and sometimes his friends will come over and there's like some gaming or whatever. And somebody will need some like type A to USB type C or some like battery or some webcam or whatever. And like my kid will come up like, "Hey dad, do you have that, and whatever it is." And I just hand it like I get in my gearbox or whatever and I grab it. And I think they think that's cool that their dad, like his dad has all this stuff. And I think that they subscribe to the channel. So if any of you guys are watching, it's appreciate you hanging out. But it is kind of interesting to, yeah, be viewed like that. Cause my kids still kind of joke to say like, well, somebody asked me what you do. What should I tell them? Because, I do this full time, but I also have other full-time careers, or gigs. I agree, man. Thanks for the shout out. To get on topic, I am so done with the Apple rumors, Bear says, but I'll definitely get my hands on the iPhone 13. Really underestimate the recent iPhone's quality. So here's the thing, man. Great point. Okay. I've got mirrorless cameras, gorgeous picture quality, interchangeable lenses. I got a lot going on. Like I got things I can do with these things. But this is with us, right? I said this in the video. This is with us most of the time. I mean, it's with us more than our families are with us. Or really anything at that point. So to be able to film, capture whatever it is that you want to capture, you want to, again, vlog, you want to get some B-roll or whatever, I don't have to pull my camera off of the tripod or change up the lenses if I just need to get like a decent shot. And sometimes I'm finding myself grabbing this more. At first, I thought I was lazy. And then I was like, actually, no, this doesn't look so bad. And so I think that's where, as much as those other features will be highlighted, I hope people will realize like, wow, like maybe that'll be a gateway for them to use these more. And not to mention, yes, they're expensive. And I said it in the video too, like if you're someone who wants to create something, you want to put yourself out there on social, you want a YouTube channel, and you have the money for a device, and it doesn't even have to be the iPhone 13, but let's say it's a device that has a decent camera on it. For me, I would say, why not? Like, why wouldn't you use these devices at all? I mean, or like it makes sense because you have it. You don't necessarily need to buy a camera with interchangeable lenses. You can start a YouTube channel. You can level up your YouTube channel. So with these smartphones. So I get excited about that for the access, for people having access to something that's really quality. Ambient Worlds. Hey man, just saying thanks for all your content. You really helped me with some big purchases, and I'm happy with my investment. I edit all of my content for my channel on my new M1. Ambient Worlds, awesome, awesome. So I think that's the point that I've made earlier because we've been here for about 4 or 5 hours now. Feels like it. I don't know, probably to some of you. Um, and I think that's the thing is like these things are really capable. I get it that it's first iteration, it's the M1. I've even seen things like it's the first one. Why would you buy the first one? So, I mean, just finished my editing A roll. Thanks for keeping me company. That felt like dude. Hey, Alex, appreciate you, brother. I mean, seriously, we got to hang out sometime. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Live stream, clubhouse, something. I don't know. I would love to hang out with you and Patrick as well, but we should do a live stream or something together. But now for the tip, I don't want to like, but I really thank you so much again for the super chat. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that the videos are helping you. I don't want to butcher your name. I really apologize. Yes, we do have to sort that out for sure, Alex. We will. So, because I'm actually finding that I do like to hang out sort of in moments like this because I think about like, oh, I could do a video and yet maybe I just jump on a live stream and we could just air it all out right now. Like a lot of the stuff that I've talked about with the Apple rumors, I could create a video around, and that's why I just put the title and the description together to just do it. Like, let's just talk about it. Because I know that for some of you it can get a little nauseating. And also too, I think the Apple rumors, for me, having a psych background in healthcare as well, like, there's a couple of things at play. I understand that as humans, we need validation, and this predates this. Yes, and impromptu chats, definitely, Alex, you're right. But this predates social media of people needing a little bit of validation for, the way they look or the things that they're buying or just, like, kinda how they're feeling, and so I understand that if people felt like I had to get the M1, like, you had to get the M1 because, like, whatever you had just wasn't working and you just couldn't wait any longer. And so I think some of you might feel like, well, the hand, like the wallet had to force it a little bit because I couldn't wait anymore, but you got something pretty awesome. I mean, I think as Alex, I'm excited for you too, because you're rocking that 16-inch MacBook Pro with the jet engines. And I'm interested to hear from the community when this next iteration comes out. But even the current M1, you didn't make a bad purchase, unless for some reason, like all of a sudden you're not producing what you need to produce, or it's not working for you. Then definitely take it back or send it back. But I don't think you should regret that purchase because of the joy and like your workload or whatever it is that you're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saving time. So, I do think that people want to feel validated. And I think that's why there's a lot about, sort of that Windows versus Mac OS. So the gaming PC, like the gaming rig, and you have like one side saying, well, Apple's never going to be considered as a serious contender for gaming. Why not? I mean, you're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar company that is, I mean, they have shareholders. They're a publicly traded company, and they have to figure out the pivot here with gaming being like having the growth in any sector of entertainment higher than any sector of entertainment, then obviously they're going to figure this thing out. Now, they might have drawn a line in the sand for a little bit with their metal and sort of that graphics, and the Nvidia fallout, you know. So, and then, we don't have to get started on the whole Epic, Games issue as well with Fortnite, but they're gonna make a play, and I think it just kinda comes down to business, folks, is that, you know, I don't I am personally not saying we built a rig, with an AMD 5600X, Ryzen 5600X, and I put my Vega 64 that I use as my editing GPU, put that in that rig, and so it's fine. It's great. I was gaming on it yesterday. And of course, calling it gaming is probably a little like it's probably offensive to even call it like me gaming on this thing because anybody who was my teammate, I'm sorry. I'm just apologizing now. But I think that there is that validation that people just want to if somebody across the street has something that's new and exciting and is doing like all of these crazy things, then you feel like you have to come to the defense. But cut your nose off to spite your face as well. Like again, I think there's a space for both of them. And obviously, the PC and console market is dominating. There's like Mac OS has a way to go, but there are developers, there are enthusiasts, there are people behind this whole thing that want gaming to be successful on Mac. They just do. So I'm all for it because you know what? It means competition. Competition's good for business. It just is. But I do think that there could be a concern for folks that are like, well, Apple gets involved in all the things like it's not going to be as fun anymore. And not just because it's like the Apple versus, Windows, or Mac OS versus Windows or PC versus, Mac, but like Apple's going to ruin it because Apple tends to wall the garden up so much that none of us can find our way out of it anymore. So I jump into Apple ecosystem this year. First iPad, then MacBook, iPhone, and watches. Bought M1 MacBook Air. I like Mac OS and really like silent computers. There's nothing passive cooled with that. But the MacBook Air, it's so I said it earlier in the stream, is that it's ridiculous how awesome that Ultrabook is. It's silly the things that you can do with it. Of course, my wife uses it for a lot of things. I mean, she's in marketing, and so she's got a ton of browsers open. She's working in like she's not a designer, but she may have to like open up files from her design team and looking at certain things, and there's never any of that, beach balling or any of those issues that she used to have on her older MacBook. And so, but for her, she just wants it to work, and it does. And it's able to do all of that and then have like a day's worth of battery life. It just depends on what you're using it for, because obviously if you're cutting, video and stuff, your battery life is going to take a hit. But, oftentimes her Dell computer that she has for work, she'd have to like go over to the MacBook Air to take the call because something locked up or whatever. And again, I'm not trying to like, bash the Windows machine that she has. It was just something got hung up or whatever, and so it was always nice to have that backup. And it's so far it's worked for her. So and again for some of the stuff that we can do with it. So Ben, question: just got the M1 Pro 13, 16 gig, 512, love it. But would I get the same results possibly for the new 14-inch 8 gig? All right, so I think that that's a valid question that is a little bit more complicated or nuanced. So, first, let me say that you're talking about a different cores. So, as far as efficient cores versus power cores, like so for the efficiency, we are going to have apparently more cores from a CPU standpoint, more cores from a GPU standpoint. And you also have to understand that the way this RAM works in not just kind of that whole swap, but the efficiency and the bandwidth that it has. That's why, Ben, a lot of folks have said, well, 8 gigs of RAM for on the M1 has been fine for me. And honestly, I think for a lot of people, it is, and it would be because of what you're doing. However, my friend, even with a higher clocked CPU and GPU, I would still recommend if you're looking to do anything creative or edit, I would still go with 16 gigs of RAM, honestly. Will you get better performance with the M1X and 8 gigs of RAM compared to the current M1? It just depends if we're talking about that whole, single core, multi-core, that whole threading aspect and what you're doing with it. Because what I can tell you is, as an example, like I can open up Logic, so audio, doing some audio, and that sucker's hungry for some RAM. Like it's looking for some RAM. Okay, as powerful as the CPU is, it's still looking for it. And there are programs even optimized that still, based on that optimization, they're like, okay, well, this is how we can utilize that RAM. So I would just be mindful of what you need to use it for, because we are going to see benchmark tests that people are going to show the M1X compared to like a maxed out M1, which how much maxed out can you be? Because you can only go 16 gigs and it's only one chip, or it's only the M1, right? So we will see those comparisons. But I am, for anyone that's looking to utilize the machine for anything that is beyond sort of student or office work or anything like that, anything creative, these developers want to figure out ways not only how they can utilize what is on that chip, that CPU, GPU, but also, okay, now we've got this RAM, and how we can swap that memory and how we can utilize that higher bandwidth memory. So I think that's my concern is like, and maybe this is a terrible comparison as far as like iPhones are concerned. Like you feel like with every update, like it just gets slower. I think it's not gonna be like that, but I do think that we're gonna start seeing people kinda getting bogged down in certain tasks, but I don't think, like, right away. I think that we're gonna have capable chipsets coming out along with this RAM that for most of us, we're probably gonna be happy for quite some time. I don't know. I like more RAM, honestly. That's just my take. I've talked about it a lot. I had a desktop PC with i7 8700 M1 MacBook Air performs the same in heavy multi-thread load. So I'm happy Ultrabook with power of average desktop computer. I know, and that's the thing. Like when you think about per watt, what these things are doing. And here's another thing, too. I did this test, and I did it on accident, but I'm glad that I did. So this hub, which actually I don't think you can find them on Amazon anymore. This Hutu hub. It's a budget hub, and I reviewed it. I ended up putting Canon R5 footage in the Final Cut Pro timeline, and I wanted to have it compressed down to an H.264 timeline for YouTube. And so the demand of that, it does take a lot of because I compress it down. So like when I upload YouTube videos, I'm thankful that when I upload them, they literally process in minutes because of the way that I compress things down. I use compressor, but then I use kind of like it flows into Final Cut Pro. So that being said, I had that connected to the M1 and then I had it connected to an external drive connected type A, so USB 3.0. And I wanted to export that timeline. Well, I noticed that it was going like really, really slow. But I was at that point, I was like, all right, well, let me just see if I can bottleneck this thing. Let me just see if I can get this thing to shut down. So I left that evening. I just left it exporting in Final Cut Pro. Came down the next morning and I it had just finished exporting. This is footage from Canon R5, and the hub didn't disconnect. It was warm. The SSD was warm. The external SSD was warm. The CPU and GPU were like when I looked at my iStat, like when I was looking at all of those measurements, they were on the whole time for I think it was roughly maybe 10 hours, 11 hours or something nonstop being used like that. So I was pushing the M1 Mini harder than most people would, and it was really a silly test. You know, I didn't think that's what was going to happen, but the fact that I came down, Final Cut didn't crash, the hub didn't disconnect, and it rendered the video or it exported the video in like in and then all of a sudden when it exported, like I saw all the CPU, drop, all of the GPU drop, just down to like, it was like 20% or 15% or whatever. But it was like spiking all the way up to like 100%, like and just riding it for the whole time. It's ridiculous. Um, let's see. So, I bought a 16 gigs of RAM and version just to be sure for future. I plan to keep MacBook for 4 to 5 years at a minimum. The one thing is, and Richard, hold on one sec. I'll get to you, Richard. The one thing that I will say too is that I hope that we can keep these machines for about 4 or 5 years. I really do, because I have a 2009 iMac, Mac Mini, 2010 MacBook Pros. They all still run, but I was able to upgrade their hard drives, the RAM, and things like that. So I'm hoping that there is a level of efficiency that we can, because things being soldered to the board and you can't really do anything, like you can't upgrade anything internally. I'm hoping that we do get that kind of longevity out of these machines. I really, just from a cost saving standpoint, the environment, but I do. Richard, hey Kevin, new subscriber here. Really enjoy your channel. Having just recently purchased a MacBook Pro M1 and an iPad Pro, I have really learned a lot from you. Hey man, I'm so thankful. I'm trying to put more content out. We were talking earlier, things have just been kind of crazy busy on some other things that I've got, but hey, I really appreciate it. I'm glad to have you here. Ben, thanks. I'm heavy with music production and don't want to overspend as well. Yeah, so with music, that's another thing too. I wish I need to do more of that. What was that? Oh, I don't know. I had something on the windscreen there. But the as far as the audio is concerned, yeah, I wanna do a little bit more of that and explore that because as someone like I said, I was podcasting for years, and then I was doing a lot of, like, sound design for, like, shows and whatnot, and so I haven't spent as much time in the audio space as I would like to, so I am curious to see what that's gonna look like, optimization, and then even the plugins. The third-party plugins have been a problem in with Logic that I've found, and then even with Ableton and a couple of the things so I have that interface behind me, a Motu M2, and a lot of that software that you can get for free, but it's not optimized for the M1. Although I think I just got an email or something that they are optimizing or that it will work. So Jay, I got M1 8 gig. I run out of memory all the time working on photos. Now, Jay, are you working in is it just like what are you editing in? And I will say, if answering the question, if you are editing in like Lightroom or Photoshop, yep, even optimized, I can understand that. But if it's another editor, I'd be curious to see what that is. Slower keyword, even with the so-called Apple Tax, 16 gig value add-on an M1 is a good idea. My base Mac Mini sometimes hangs up once in a while, and I have to kill uh, Teams and other things. Okay, yeah. And I bought my wife an M1 Mini with 16 and 1 terabyte, and never have to do service calls thanks to being rock solid. That is always nice for those that are a little bit not as fortunate as far as the technical, like, capacity that we probably carry around in our brains or whatever, and I think that probably still makes me, like, the cool dad with my kids because they always come to me for tech support, which is so fascinating. Because 'cause I'm like, "Don't you" I don't know, it's like, I wanna say, like, "You've got access to YouTube, you can Google that, right?" But I'm very thankful that they're coming to me to help them out, but yeah, no, it is nice to have. Again, that's when it was time to upgrade my wife's setup because she was like, "I don't know. It's just I can't get it to open. I can't, the browser would just lock up or the beach ball." And I could tell she was frustrated. She would never be like, "I think it's time for a new computer." I just knew it was time. So that has been really nice to have that for sure. I gotta get some water. It's funny. I said, "Oh my gosh, we're almost at 2 hours." My camera's probably gonna die. I don't even know like what the battery is. But anyway, let's see. Bought my wife. Good question. I've run out of memory in Adobe Lightroom. Quite large library. 300,000. Holy smokes. Are are you keeping that internal or are you hold on, let me also run out in Photoshop when working on large panoramas and even macOS photos library with about 60,000 photos, particularly when doing faces. Yeah. And are you I mean again, are you keeping that local? Or are you doing an external, setup for all of your, like, libraries and stuff? I mean, not that that necessarily I'm not sure that that matters as much, but unless you are running out of space internally, right, for that swap to happen or not happen, but that would be the case with any kind of RAM swap, anyway, but I'm just curious. So, but yeah, with even with Adobe coming out with optimized software, and this was even not that long ago before Premiere Pro, optimized for M1. I had people say like, "Hey, I'm a Premiere user. I don't wanna switch. I don't wanna change, and so what do you think of the M1?" And I was still reluctant because, again, if you're using this for a job or for something that you really love, your hobby, I don't want you pulling out your hair because you can't get it to, like, work the way that you want it to work, and so I was still recommending certain PCs depending on, like, what you wanted, although I would still love for folks to have the ability to really see what that workflow looks like with M1, like, with the fact that you can't hear the fan, it doesn't get hot, uh, so far it, like, works. There's been Bluetooth issues and some Wi-Fi hangups for some folks, and I understand that. But as much as I want people to experience it, I also want them to have a device that works for their workflow. And I think I will be doing more testing with the silicon version of Premiere Pro, and I think that's gotten better. And actually, Gene Nagata, Potato Jet, he had a video came out. It was probably a couple months ago at this point, and he had put together a timeline from one of his cinema cameras, and he was running it. I think they were on a base MacBook Air, and I think it was a MacBook Air, and he was cruising along. He was pretty surprised. It just again, it does come down to some plugins because if you use plugins, whether in Premiere or even Final Cut, not all of them are optimized, or like they just won't like show up. Like if you're certain titles or transitions or whatever, they just won't function properly. I bought okay, so Richard says, "I bought 2 fledging enclosures with the SN750, after watching your videos, but can only plug 1 in at a time with M1 MacBook. Won't power both. Is that normal?" No, because huh. Richard, because hold on, I was just wanting to see if somebody had chimed in. So, I don't know why that would be the case, my friend, because a lot of the tests that I've done with these enclosures, and even the Acasis one that I have, the USB 4 one, I've plugged them into the same not the same, sorry, with plugged them into, each of the ports and transferred files back and forth just to see if I could get it to randomly disconnect or how quick it was, and so I haven't had that issue, and hmm. So, I would be curious though, because do you have a hub? But then you would actually have to have, like, an Anchor, like, hub that I've featured, which is, Thunderbolt. So, then that would power it just to see if it's a power issue. Now, I will say, I do wanna look further into this though, Richard. Um, yeah, because Jay is actually saying that you might need a Thunderbolt hub. I wanna look into this because even though I've reviewed the fledging, enclosure and the other enclosure I did, like, I purchased those, they didn't send them to me. They their tech support, I've reached out to them a couple times, and they've been fairly responsive, like, usually within, like, a 24-hour period. There might be because of the chip no, not so much the chip, though. Maybe the board or the fact that it's got that fan in it, and so it might require a slightly bit more wattage than or at least power than, say, my USB 4 enclosures from a cases. So, I really should test that, but I don't like, in my testing, I think I need to look at that. So, I'm sorry, I can't give you the answer. I can tell you that I haven't experienced it, but, fledging may be a better answer, possibly. Thunderbolt external disk enclosure with this, I learned a lot. Thank you, though, Jay. As far as the M1, those were and yeah, I wanted people to understand, Jay, that with the Thunderbolt throughput, for the most part, unless you're running RAID, and really, like, if you're running, like, a RAID and if you're trying to max out that throughput, I tried to prove a point through that Anchor hub or dock setup that if you max it out, if you push it, you will get that throughput. But from a real world standpoint, remember, depending on the program that you're working in, that you are at sort of limited by the app itself. So if Final Cut can only like write and transcode and export and all like render only so quickly. And so like that was my point. Like when I max it out with the hub or the dock, I was getting similar speeds, or I'm sorry, similar write performance as I was on the internal. So meaning I was doing other things in the background through that dock while I was exporting that video, and I got similar performance exporting it as I would on the internal. So I just want people to realize and remember that we also are at the mercy of how fast that program can really run or write. And again, CPU, GPU performance as well. So it's not just the throughput. Although I had said earlier, I don't know if you were here too, Richard, and of course Jay, that when I talked about the retimers in the computer itself, like that is something that Apple has had to rely on, and I know Apple does not want to rely on that. That I think that they want this to be ready to roll without that retimer to balance that throughput. I think that they want this controller to be able to handle that communication protocol and to be able to give us that throughput. And it's not going to be a true 40 gigabits per second. Like there is some that's pushed aside. Like I think if we can expect like maybe 25 gigabits per second on that throughput, because uh, some of that resource will be allocated elsewhere. I'll probably do a video on that, especially when the M1X comes out. So just keeping that in mind. Jay, Richard and I have heard this issue. You need a Thunderbolt hub, and maybe you do. But yeah, I need to do a little testing. Mike, I'm a Fuji fan, for instance. The rumors there are much more accurate, or Fuji stinks it. Yeah. So, Mike, you're right. And it's the same thing too. Oh, and I didn't even see your previous that rumors, yes, quite tired, especially as either the speculation is um, Apple is getting better at keeping the secret, Wising, or yeah, definitely getting better at keeping the secrets. The funny thing is, I think secretly, I know Apple's kind of had that runaround where what was it? Was it the iPhone 4 that was left somewhere? or was it the 7? I thought it was actually I think it was like the 4, but it could have been the 7 where that was, like, left somewhere, like one of the employees was out and about and left it, and so, obviously, I think Apple does hold their cards very close to them during this R&D that is going on in the engineering, but come on, like, from a business standpoint, aren't like, from a like, marketing, it's getting people excited, and it's probably ticking people off too because they're just like, "Alright, I'm just sick of this. I'm either gonna buy what's current or I'm just gonna go somewhere else." So, I think deep down, as much as they're saying that they want to um, capture some of that rumor mill and make sure that people aren't leaking some of that. I think it's just a matter of like how they want to leak things out. And even if they do, I don't know. I will say that for some of us, it hasn't been as much fun. Like when you have all of these leaks and rumors and stuff coming out, then when you're at the event and you're like, right, we heard it all before. Or you're at the event, just like the iPad Pro, the M1, right? How many people got so upset by the iPad Pro and that the iPad OS 15 was not going to give us what we were promised, in the rumors. I mean, it's a capable device, it really is. But I will say that it's an expensive device for what it does, and you really have to be, like, ingrained in that ecosystem. So and really, like, love it and want it. So, um, Richard, you do have but going back to the Fuji thing, yeah, and it's the same thing with cameras like Sony, right? Like, Sony alpha rumors. It's just, one leak after another, and I don't know. I really do I am curious to explore a little bit of the, Fuji, though. I really am. So Richard says, you do have a new hub. I can plug the fledging and a SanDisk Extreme at the same time. It works with a 13-to-1 Anchor hub. I think I know which one you're talking about, Richard. Just not both fledgings at the same time. Same happens when I use two. Oh, okay. So Richard, what I can say, I just want to make sure that the Thunderbolt ports are working properly on the new M1 Pro. So yeah, I can tell you from my testing, I have connected them without a hub in the same again, no, not the same, different ports. You should be able to do that. And so you shouldn't need a hub for that, but I need to actually test that again. I really do. I obviously can't do it right now because the my wife, she has the MacBook Air right now, so she took it to the mountains with her. But I will test that just to double check to see if there's something that I missed or if there's some issue there. Um, but yeah, anyway, I wish I could give you a better answer, Richard. Better answer. So because I try to test as much of the nuances as I can for people because I know I can't capture everything that people are using these things for. Sorry, I'm just looking at my watch because I think one of my kids will be out of school on the bus fairly soon, so we probably have to like get out of here soon. But that being said, let me see, and then if fledging might have some info on that as well, I just can't imagine that you're gonna need that much power. Um, I got an Anchor Power hub, and that does work. Thank you. Yeah, I would just hate and the thing is too, Richard, as I said in my video, it depends on if you are going so Thunderbolt, you're either taking advantage of USB 4, which as we know, Apple confused everybody with Thunderbolt 3 and 4 because to be like you can't qualify yourself as 4 when you can only connect that one external display for the notebooks, for the MacBooks. And so and then obviously we're not getting that throughput. We are getting that backward compatibility, or at least that, I'm sorry, backward and or forward compatibility, however you want to look at it. So you can connect the Thunderbolt 3 enclosure like the fledging and the USB 4 enclosure. And honestly, I think probably spec for spec or benchmark for benchmark, we were getting fairly like within the same, like 10 or 20 or so as far as like the results that we were getting. So Thunderbolt 3 versus USB 4 as far as that SSD is concerned, you're still getting that same transfer. So that'll be something else to see with these M1Xs is that not only are we getting the throughput that we should be getting that's advertised, or that the communication protocol asks for, but then also to the displays and being able to push multiple displays. And I think that that is unfortunately the issue with the M1 is that you've got this SoC. There's only so much that you can do, and like I said, they needed the retimer for the Thunderbolt controllers. And from a display standpoint, we are going to need a little bit more. I think that's what the community is really searching for, especially the pro community. And hey, you don't have to be pro if you want multiple displays. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, before I was cutting video or whatever, I loved multiple displays. Yeah, maybe yeah, I don't know, Richard. Possible. Maybe have them test that. Another thing that you could go look into making sure that they're both recognized in your settings. So like when you go, you hit the Apple and then kind of go into your system report and then opening that up to look at the controllers, making sure that each controller is identified. And then typically when you connect that enclosure, that Thunderbolt enclosure to that port, then that should be recognized as well. I mean, I would double check it though. So, and the Acasis does the same thing. Weird, weird. And I'm sorry, I would grab both of them. I have them both. I'm cutting a current video on one, and the other one's in that cabinet right behind me. If I had the M1, I mean, I do my Mac Mini, but that won't help you since that's like plugged into the wall. So anyway, so I don't know what else is happening in the world of Apple rumors. So we kind of talked about, you know, obviously iPhone 13 sounds like it's going to be named 13. M1X is coming at some point. Oh, and another thing too, like for people that are asking about M1X, I do think that the MacBook Pros are likely first. I don't know about the Mac Mini. And then, of course, I would agree that the iMac is gonna be coming later, not probably not this year, but next year because, Apple needs to keep that momentum, and obviously, they also need to keep that logistic, as far as the manufacturing is concerned. I no joke, though, as much as you see the news, you read the headlines, you read the stories about their partnerships and their logistics as far as manufacturing is concerned, we are headed into fall and winter months. Healthcare provider here, I follow the data, follow the science, I know how it goes. I'm not saying like there's going to be a shutdown. That's not what I'm predicting here. But what I am saying is that there could be some bottlenecks. So there also can be some people that are just chomping at the bit to get these new devices, and that demand goes up. That manufacturing demand can only, has a limit. It's got a threshold. So that'll be interesting to see. So I could kind of see them staggering these out. I am fascinated though with the M1X, the Mac Mini, because I know that there's kind of this whole thing of like, was the Mini going to be sort of like a Mini Pro? Is it going to mimic that at all? And probably not this next iteration, but are they going to do something where there is a modular component to it? Probably not. Like I don't think we're going to be able to do anything to it. I think everything's going to come soldered to the board and be on the chip. But how many of you can ever like recall like where somebody said, "Yeah, get the Mac Mini. That thing is like powerful as all get out." I mean, the Mac Mini was like it's the least expensive entry point into Mac OS outside of a Hackintosh, which I had a couple of those back in the day. But I'm just saying, like, it works out of the box. So it's definitely like the best way to get into Mac OS, I think, to try it out if you have peripherals. And so uh, it's interesting to tell people, no, get the M1. It's so powerful, and everybody's like, what? Really? The Mini? So it's kind of like the running joke. Like people use them as media servers, hooked them up to like their TVs and had all their Plex servers and stuff and all their movies. And I mean, even Apple came out with their version of a server software. Like, and I had that. We utilized it for a little bit in my business just to see like how it ran. It was it was so different than like running like Windows Server, but actually in a good way. It's the unfortunate thing is that it just wasn't really supported, and obviously it's no longer. So let's see, maybe MacBook Pro M1 was far too early to call it Pro. So uh, I can't remember if I said this, since it feels like we've been here for several days on this live stream, but the fact is that Apple put these out. They put them in the chassis that they already had because again, logistics, manufacturing, and I don't know that Apple really expected us, like the community, to do what we're doing with these. Like, they was like, "Oh yeah, look at the GPU. Look how fast we can edit something. Look how great, like, like you can just rip through these photos." I don't think that they were expecting this level. I honestly do. I don't think I'm being naive here. I think that they were hopeful, but I think that the Pro moniker is just, kind of what they've slapped on that device because that's just what it was. And again, it's the same chassis, the same like it's the same, just under the hood, like within it is different. So I think that's really what, Apple was putting it out there, seeing what this thing was going to do. They knew that most people would be impressed. As far as engineering is concerned, the Bluetooth issues, the Wi-Fi, and a couple connectivity problems, you know, whether they knew that or not, like, I think they knew that they had a hit on their hands, and so they were just gonna continue to build on that. And honestly, folks, I think it's an Apple style that they were just sort of not forcing, but really heavily influencing the developer community to say, like, "Yeah, this is the way we're running. This is it. Like, we'll still use some Intel for a little bit here, but this is the way we're moving forward." They've got deep pockets, they've got influence, and they were gonna try to force the narrative as much as they possibly could, and they did. And yes, Richard, thanks for hanging out, and, I appreciate your time as well. JW says, "Pro just means you're going to bang on it for endless hours on end. Active fan keeps it from melting down." Exactly. It's more pro in the fact, like, it's just gonna look cooler, but run hotter, maybe. I don't know. So that probably is. But yeah, pro is so many levels, and I think that's what I had said earlier is that when people were feeling like left out because like all the cool kids are hanging out like in the M1 space, and so everybody's excited, and so people might be, trolling the comment section or upset with like creators like myself, like, it's trash and this and that. And it's like, use what works for you. But yeah, pro doesn't always, you don't have to be the video editor, you don't have to do audio. I think it's just that Apple, I remember even before Mac OS, like even entertaining the idea, for me, using Windows and even Linux, uh, it was one of those things like where Apple was for creators, like people that were into photo and video, because the only people that I knew had a Mac many years ago, they mostly were creative. And then the interesting thing is I changed the narrative, or at least my own narrative. And in my business that is in healthcare, I ended up trying to transition over to Mac OS just because of having a more fluid IT experience, security, and it was a nightmare for a little bit because obviously in a lot of these spaces, Windows is the one that's running the show. So we were having to write our own programs oftentimes. And so we're pro. What I needed was at least the ability to have, whether it's the hard drive space or at least the speed and the RAM at the time. I didn't care so much about sort of the GPU stuff, but yeah, like I do think pro is relative to, the user, and you don't have to edit video. You don't have to be a creator on YouTube or whatever to call yourself a pro. So I think it's just something, it's just marketing. It really is just marketing, and it's a way to differentiate, their lineup. Because even when the MacBook Air came out, the first Air came out, everybody's like, "Wow, that thing fits in an envelope." That thing's ridiculous. But it you might as well kept it in the envelope because it didn't do much. It really didn't. And so this is where Apple's really gonna have to uh, figure out that differentiation with these chips. And I think, the whole naming scheme gets a little, the M1X and then the M2, and people asking me about, M2 versus M1X, why not the M2? And of course, we're talking about, the threading and single core versus multi-core, and how Apple wants to focus on certain efficiencies with certain chips. And so, yeah, the labels, I think it probably would be nice to get a little clarity, although I don't know that it will make much of a difference. I think like if it's true and the rumors are true with the MacBook Air being like having colors like the iPad Air Gen 4, I could see that as their way of saying like, well, people want something a little bit different, like more fun, because the creators, oh, sorry, the creators over here, uh, they just want it either, you know, carbon whatever, black, matte black, and gray, and so like whatever. Like they don't care about the color stuff. So I think that's an interesting marketing ploy too. Like that's kind of how they're differentiating is, well, the fun stuff is like for the average consumer, and the serious stuff is, the gray, the space gray, and the silver. I I'm just kind of joking, but I'm just saying that Apple needs a little bit of work here because I do think that there's a hang up on what people see as far as pro versus non-pro. Good grief, that was a ramble. That was silly. Did I answer like cases? I just want to make sure that I answered as much as I could. This has been great because I just set stuff up because of this video that I was recording or that I was cutting for this microphone review that I'm doing. And I literally just went live. Like I didn't create a thumbnail, I didn't do anything. But then I said earlier, my thumbnail, my channel banner is this shirt, and I'm wearing the shirt today because I think that was probably my thumbnail for this video because I didn't do a custom thumbnail. So it's been awesome hanging out with everybody. Um, yes, it was what a ramble. And actually, if you don't know, Patrick rambles. So he's friends, and they actually have a podcast. So Alex as well, who was here earlier, they I was on their show, the Tube Life podcast, and so we all kind of got connected through Clubhouse and stuff. So he loves to ramble as well. But I appreciate this. I don't foresee myself doing a live stream all that often because I'm sure you get sick of me. However, I enjoy being able to hang out with you. Oh no, Alex, you're still here, dude. Dude, you seriously? Man, you're the bomb, man. What time is it there? What's it? Let's see. It's 3:12 here, Colorado. So I need to I need to get because I know we were in WhatsApp and whatever, and we were going back and forth on that live stream that we were doing for the what was it? Was it WWDC that we were talking about? And I know we were kind of connecting on the time. So 10:12. So what time? All right. So what time do you sack out, man? Because I sometimes see like when I'm tweeting stuff out and you're still responding. Like what's like that's uh that's some real dedication there to the socials. And I encourage, hey, like if some of you, if you're not on Twitter, and of course I got a bunch of notifications on Twitter, so I don't know if people like followed me or whatever, or over there or tagging me or whatever. But I love if you hang out in the right spaces of Twitter, tech, whatever, find me, find Alex. There's some good people over there. There really are. And people that are trying to help each other out, answer questions. Alex, most days I have a midnight cutoff. All right, that's good. That's good. So, I mean, that as a creator, I think that's one thing that it's harder to delineate that space, right? So, like when you leave your job, you close the office door, and you're on your way home or your commute. Even if your commute's like in the home, and like for the most part, you're done. Whereas a creator, we always feel like because like right now, I'm literally the worst part about doing YouTube, not the worst part, but one thing that I really don't like as much is like I talk to the camera and I'm talking to you and I genuinely am trying to talk to you, is that I wish I could do like I love this live aspect so I can really hang out with you in real time. So I don't know. That's just a bummer of YouTube. The other bummer is really just trying to keep up with everything that's happening and creating content because it takes so much work. On my other channel, I'm going to talk about some of the jobs that I had. I've done some crazy stuff. I mean, and I've done some really hard work. I mean, I was an apprentice like for carpentry. I did road construction in like New York. I mean, like you're in like New York City and you're trying to do road, like everybody's screaming at you, yelling at you because you've closed down a lane or two lanes or whatever. And hey, if you were part of that, I'm sorry. I was just there. We were doing road construction, so I've done some like really gritty, like backbreaking jobs. But I will say, like, once I left that work for the day, I left it. But as Alex was pointing out here, boom, we're on social trying to like engage with our communities here, talking to people, making sure everybody's taken care of. still thinking of, the video ideas and the B-roll and shooting the A-roll and dealing with our gear. So, yeah, it is a grind for sure. I know. So Mile High I know. I did not know I was going live, my friend. I didn't know. And it's so funny because I keep looking at my watch because I think my kids are gonna one of my kids are gonna be home. And so it was impromptu because I'm finally reviewing this mic from Samsung that I've been using in my videos for a while. And I have this video that I've cut for it's almost ready to go. And I was like, well, why don't I just like do an actual live stream with it, plug and play, no interface, USB like into the computer to show people how easy it is. Cause you know me, I'm just going to test and we're going live. I haven't done a live on my channel in years. So it's for the community. Um, yeah, appreciate it. So, have a great evening. You too. Of course, I'm tired of the rumors, but I'll still be grubbing for everyone that comes along until I'm holding my M1X 16. Hey, I hope so. I hope so. I really, I fingers crossed that it is going to be everything that people think it's going to be, or that it should be, or and more. I really do. So, the more you ramble, the more the more we learn. I think that's the issue, Richard, and not so much the issue as much as I that's kind of why I started the other channel. That's why I do other things is because they're just I just love so many things. So my head hurts because I try to fill it with so much stuff. Case in point, part of the stream will be in my B-roll for tomorrow's vid. Nice. Tubeception. Sweet, dude. Yeah, so if you grab the feed, I'll just leave it on the channel if there's something that you need to grab, unless you've like screen recorded or whatever. By the way, mic sounds pretty good, especially if it is your voice, not the mic making the gravel. The mic is not making the gravel. So I can't remember if you were here earlier, my friend. We were soccer match a couple of days ago, screaming like nuts, and uh, yeah. So my vocal cords are shredded, and that's the issue. So yeah, it's not the mic. Really tired of the rumors. Let me just get up. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think the point is that we have built up to it. And if there are any, kids watching, plug your ears or turn it off or whatever. But hey, it's like Santa was all spoiled, right? It's one of those things like where everybody believed, oh, my dogs are gonna bark. So that was my kid. So, it's like we've built up to it, we've talked about it for so much, like, all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh, wait, Santa's not" like, because when we get to these events, we're not surprised anymore. So, that's kind of been the issue, I think. It just really spoils it. Hey, Liam. Oh, yeah, so that's my youngest. I'm just live streaming. Wanna say hi? I'm on YouTube.
You're live streaming on YouTube?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you can stay out of the shot.
All right.
I was trying to wrap it up because I know I gotta take him to soccer pretty soon. But
Like in an hour.
well, yeah, in an hour, but I've been live streaming for 2 hours and 27 minutes.
Is this on your first, second channel?
No, it's on my main channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could join.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So anyway, oh, you could join. You're gonna watch it.
How many people are watching right now?
16 right now, and but the chat's been kind of lit because I just went live impromptu. Really tired of the rumors. Yeah, I want to start to go live, but I have to figure out the live setup and how to connect things together, camera, mic. So I can't remember. In the description of this video is what I'm using: Sony A6400 Sigma 16 millimeter connected through a capture card that unfortunately is disconnected. So you'll probably have to like get a capture card that will that's like reasonably priced, because I know that there are capture cards out there that are fairly reasonably priced and still work well. So I linked one up because the one that I purchased, I think probably like retailed for around 30 or 40 bucks. And then I have this mic USB C, USB A into the computer. So I try not to complicate it too much, although I've probably already complicated it with you've got a mirrorless camera with an interchangeable lens, but you know, I would say you could start with your phone if you need to, but I know that you already have a camera anyway. So, oh yeah, there he is. Ips McGee. That's my kid. So, but yeah, I would say live streaming, it's one of those things like you're trying to get you're trying to keep people's attention, and obviously audio quality, I mean, makes a huge difference. So I'm not saying shooting on a potato is going to work, but I've seen people that shot on pretty decent webcams and held an audience. So I'll be watching the rerun if you leave it up. You know what? I think I will. It's ridiculously long at this point, so I'm sure that my views are going to be like, dude, what is this guy talking about for 2.5 hours? If you weren't here from the beginning, I talked about a lot of stuff, so I think I will leave it up. We'll see how that all plays out. Sometimes YouTube will penalize you, like if somebody says like, "There's no way in the world I'm watching that for 2.5 hours. It's ridiculous." So then your views go down, and that sort of like has an impact on your whole channel. But it's I mean, everything I said here, I think I mean it, like I said what I said. And if I need to correct something, if I said something, I always said if I make mistakes, I'll correct it. So anyway, all right. Well, good grief, 2.5 hours. I guess on the point, folks, why don't we just get out of here on this one and expect some more content maybe around M1X, but I hope to not really have any more. I hope we don't have to have conversations like this with the M1X rumors. I mean, we could probably live stream and hang out a bit more on it, but making videos, I know it gets the views. And from a business standpoint, it's nice because it helps creators continue to do the things that they need to do. So, oh, why am I not able to record 1080p video on OPS and you should be able to on OBS? Yes, Alex, keep rocking faces. Video on I assume that's what you mean on OBS and my M1 Mac 16 gig. I don't think that's a limitation of the M1, or is it OBS on but I have OBS on the Mini, but I'm running strictly through YouTube, the studio, the creator studio. Actually, the channel, like not even the studio, creator studio app. I'm literally running it through just the YouTube platform. But I'm not sure, my friend, as far as OBS is concerned. So you should be able to record in 1080p. I'd have to double check that because again, I have been testing OBS on the M1, but I was running OBS in the video that'll be coming out on this microphone on a PC though. But I'm not so let me see what you said. OBS using software encoding as default. You have to switch to HW encoder. Oh, okay. Maybe that is the answer. And I'm sorry that I didn't have the answer, but see, that's the beauty about the community. I'm just one man here. So we're together on this one, folks. We're we're together. And when can we expect the M2? Well, I don't know about the M2. Let's say it's probably going to be the M1X because we hadn't really talked enough about that or so much about M1X versus M2. I'm thinking unless something has come out recently, I still think that they're gonna try to throw the M1X in the Mini, and I'm not sure that they wanna take the thunder from the 2 MacBook Pros that they're apparently gonna be releasing. But however, they did release the Mini along with the Air and the Pro, so why wouldn't they? So it is possible that we could see this around the same time. I could foresee the same thing that we were ordering these and getting them roughly in November. So that's probably a possibility. October potentially, and I know the whole thing of like between September and November. Oh, well, that's October. But I think it could be similar to a repeat. Thinking about the holiday sales, you're going to see like crazy deals on the M1s for the holidays, like people just getting ridiculous deals on the MacBook Airs, which, hey, if you can get a good deal on a MacBook Air, you can afford it, you got somebody that might be able to utilize that. I mean, just saying, they're they're still going to be great devices. So that's just something to consider. I'm not even saying like it doesn't have to be your main device, but just as a backup or for someone else. maybe next live stream during the Apple event. That would be fun, and I bet a lot of people. Yeah, you know what? I know that, like, Luke Miani and a couple of other folks do those live streams, and even Alex, we had gotten together on the iPhone. No, wasn't not iPhone, WWDC, sorry. And so, yeah, I have actually thought about that, so maybe we should. Maybe we should hang out then. Um, is it Ips? Oh, great. My kid asked, M1X gonna be kinda like any Pro of a phone, meaning same design but better hardware? I'm not sure what he said. It's good, like, the design is going to be different. So, because I think people are finally tired, although the designs are great, but yeah, it's gonna be redone, like an iPhone 11 Pro. Are you talking about the 13? See, here's the funny thing. How is it that I know more about, well, I know more about tech because this is my job now, but I'm just trying to figure out what he means. And hey, I really appreciate the being subscribed to the channel. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I really, really do. I am very thankful. Or the Success Plus. No. All right. Now he's just like I might have to mod him out of this. Like he's jamming up the chat here. So um, but no, I'm very thankful for each and every one of you. And I know not every one of you catches every video, and I know not every video is for everyone. Like it's you tune in for the ones that interest you, because I try to make content for as many people within a certain niche as I can, you know. So um why don't we have a join button? Are you talking about like for memberships or whatever? I don't know if I have that enabled. If that's what you're talking about. I'm not sure if I have. Maybe I should check that out. But if that's what you're talking about, but I'll look back into the back end of things. I'll look at that and just double check. So, but again, so appreciate you. I do this because I love it, but I also do it because I know that I'm at least helping people. And even if it's like stuff that you already know, maybe like for a few minutes, like we not a few minutes like a live stream, but like literally like a video that we just get to hang for a little bit. And I don't know, hopefully it moves the needle for you, makes you happy, entertains you. I don't know. But yeah, I will look at that join button because I'm not sure that I have that in there. Anyway, folks, here I gotta hang it up. So because it's going to be a ridiculous archived video, but I thank you. I'm very thankful for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your time, because your time is so important outside of YouTube. So I am thankful that you shared a little bit of your time today, and for some of you, you shared quite a bit of your time. So I'm very thankful for each and every one of you. How many times can I say that? All right, folks, go out there and rock those faces, as I always say. And people ask me what I mean by that. Rocking faces is bringing the best of you forward. When you come into contact with somebody, just melt their faces, like, and I don't mean like in a malicious way, like just kindness, be awesome, and just like people want to be around you, like because you're just bringing everything like so awesome to them each and every day. And I know like we can't always like roll out of bed and feel like I'm gonna rock faces today, but just bring, your best. And that's what I mean. All right, everybody, out here on this one. So I'll catch you right back here on the next one.